Chapter 1732. Don't move first. Qin Feng's gaze was soft as he smiled. Simultaneously, he put out his other hand, and a surge of invisible power spread out, encompassing scarlet-bearded Master's corpse in the coffin. Qin Feng tried to comprehend the surface, and the first surface was the creation. Creation contained the most profound profoundness of life. Reviving a 9th-tier divine-level expert was considered an easy feat. Divine light rapidly cleansed the death aura on the corpse, and the majestic powers of creation repaired the corpse. Very soon, the corpse, which had lost a large part of its vitality and essence, became as smooth as jade. Although the corpse was short and skinny, it emitted a glow that was as clear as jade. Next is the regeneration of flesh and blood. Qin Feng's gaze flashed with a sharp gleam. He grabbed out in void space, and the hints of death aura that had been expelled earlier appeared in void space. A vortex appeared on Qin Feng's palm, and the extremely pure death aura entered the vortex. Qin Feng felt that the extremely pure death aura was formed after scarlet-bearded Master's flesh and blood essence had been transformed. If he wished to revive scarlet-bearded Master, he could retrieve the materials on the spot and return them to their origins. Of course, this step was very easy for Qin Feng. However, to many experts, this step was like a fantasy story. Reversing death and turning it into vitality. This was an unparalleled divine ability of the legends. Qin Feng waved his sleeves, and the vortex in his right hand turned into a purple light sphere that slapped down on scarlet-bearded Master's corpse. Dense purple light flowed, and in that instant, flesh and blood grew on scarlet-bearded Master's jade-white bones. In just a few breaths' time, a short old man with a simple and unadorned appearance appeared. He wore purple Taoist robes and was dressed in the Taiji 8 trigrams. His complexion was rosy, and his hair and beard were as black as ink. His dense vitality manifested with a faint jade-like glow. The aura of a 9th-tier divine-level expert seethed in void space. No one would be able to imagine that scarlet-bearded Master had been a dead person in a tomb just moments ago. However, his eyes were still closed. Qin Feng's gaze landed on the other hand. Scarlet Beard's remnant soul was like a ball of flame. Qin Feng channeled a strand of fortune godforce into it. The fiery red ball of fire transformed from the soul suddenly expanded, as if it had been injected with a cardiac stimulant. The remnant soul was rapidly mended and became complete. The mighty power of his soul and primordial spirit was like a scarlet sun. Seeing this, Qin Feng smiled faintly. With a wave of his sleeve, the ball of light in his left hand fell into Redbeard's body like a meteor. Rumble! A crimson light burst out from Scarlet Beard's body, shaking the void. Upon seeing this scene, Qin Feng and Xiao Wu both vanished into the air. A pair of crimson eyes opened, and wisps of flame darted out from his eyebrows. The short Taoist priest opened his eyes. His eyes scanned his surroundings. Soon after, he frowned and raised his hands slightly in front of him. "I'm not dead." Scarlet Beard was astonished. As an expert from before the Great Divine Demon War, he clearly remembered that he had fought against several hundred demon gods before perishing together with a great demon god. He could sense that the last strand of his vitality had been wiped away by that powerful and terrifying great demon god. Could it be that I was saved by the sovereign with some divine medicine? Scarlet Beard mumbled as he circulated the divine power in his body. He realized that the divine power in his body did not regress as he had imagined. Instead, it seemed to be abnormally abundant. It was as if he could topple mountains and overturn seas. Scarlet Beard was still in a daze. He really could not understand. He had clearly died, so how could he still be in perfect condition? It was too unbelievable. However, at the next moment, his expression changed. His majestic divine consciousness extended out and countless demonic clouds appeared in the sky above the northern sea. Demon race. Scarlet Beard's eyes turned cold. With a flash, he disappeared from the tomb. An instant later, many experts from the human temple saw a red light shoot out from the depths of the northern sea. An aura that far surpassed that of ordinary ninth heaven divine level experts soared into the clouds. This is? Many human experts frowned as they looked at this terrifying aura in astonishment. Could it be that an expert who had been in seclusion in the underground palace has attained a breakthrough? However, this was just the beginning. Very soon, within a few minutes, many human experts discovered to their astonishment that there seemed to be an endless number of ninth heaven divine level experts underground. 2 of them, 3 of them, 10 of them, 100 of them. Within a short 1 hour, the auras of over 1,000 Tier 9 divine level experts emerged from underground. Underground, Qin Feng was like a ghost that walked on the border between life and death. He awakened many human experts who had sunk into a world of death from their slumber, bestowing them with flesh, blood, life, and that inextinguishable battle will. Among these experts, there was no lack of famous pseudo-paragons such as Li Mu, Fengbo, Yushi, Qi Songzi, the nine-headed human sovereign, Bai Jian, Yinglong. There were many extremely terrifying ninth-tier divine-level experts. Blazing auras soared into the clouds, smashing into the demonic clouds and shattering the universe. This scene made many experts from the human temple, who were doing their best to resist the invasion of the demon race's experts, feel as if they were in a dream. They are, right now, in the sky above the human temple, a group of human experts, including the temple master Xianyuan Wuji, watched this scene with their eyes wide open. Their expressions were extremely astonished. Xianyuan Wuji, Jade Emperor itinerant, and many first-generation human experts who had experienced the first great divine demon war. Many people had already recognized the identities of these experts. This was especially so for the strongest few pseudo-paragons. Fengbo, Yushi, Qi Songzi, the nine-headed human sovereign, and the others. This group of people found it hard to believe what they were seeing. These experts had all perished. They had even paid their respects to a few of them frequently. The appearance of over 1,000 ninth heaven divine level experts almost instantly reversed the disadvantageous situation of the human temple being attacked by the decapitation tactic. The numerous demon gods and great demon gods who had pressed forward were like harvesting leeks in the hands of those ninth heaven divine level experts, falling one after another. Compared to the group of human temple experts who were both surprised and delighted, the Abyss God Emperor couldn't believe what he was seeing. In the void, Abysmal Emperor found it hard to believe his eyes. His confident and arrogant smile had already stiffened. He felt as if a heavy hammer had smashed his head, and he was seeing stars. How can there be so many ninth heaven divine level experts in the human race? Looking at the surging auras below the North Sea, the Abyss God Emperor's heart turned cold. A ninth-tier divine-level expert was definitely not an ordinary divine-level expert. Even under his command, there were only 100 great demonic god-level experts who were at the ninth tier of the divine level. This was completely different from what he had planned and imagined. Right now, there were already over 100 ninth heaven divine level experts in the sky, quietly surrounding the Abyss God Emperor. We've poked a hornet's nest this time around. Outside the human race's 9 regions, Nicholas' expression was not much better than the Abyss God Emperor's as he watched this scene from afar. However, as he was in the outer regions, other than the astonishment on his face, there was also a hint of schadenfreude. To think that there are so many ninth heaven divine level experts? Outside the human race's 9 regions, on top of a mountain in another direction, Doris, who had flown over from heaven, was also staring in the direction of the human race's saint realm. Her brows were tightly furrowed. It was true that the demon race was heaven's enemy, but for so many experts to emerge from the human race, it wasn't a good thing for heaven either. It seems that we've been too lax in our surveillance of the human race over the years. To think that so many experts have emerged from the human race within a short period of time. Some of Doris' initial considerations toward the human race completely changed at this moment. The sharpness in her gaze grew increasingly intense, bringing with it a hint of eerie coldness. Doris was already considering whether she should urge heaven and the demon world to join forces this time around. For the human race to have so many ninth heaven divine level experts, it was too dangerous. Races that had been reared in captivity should abide by the rules of captivity. If there were too many of them, they had to be killed. Chapter 1733. However, whether it was Nine Abyss Emperor, Doris, or some other experts who were spying in the dark, they gradually discovered something. Is it Zhurong? And Gonggong, Xian Ming. In the Magi Palace, a group of experts from the wizard race looked at the sky and sensed the strong aura of the wizard race. Their eyes were filled with shock. When the wizard race was first born, it was rumored that there were 12 most powerful wizard ancestors. They were close to the level of supremacy and were the founders of the wizard race. Most of them had already fallen. However, before their eyes, this legendary wizard ancestor who had fallen had already reappeared. Could it be that these wizard ancestors haven't died and have been hiding in the depths of the divine palace to cultivate? Many wizard race members found it hard to believe this guess. This is really, on the other side, Emperor Nicholas narrowed his eyes. After watching for a while, he also recognized some famous experts from the divine palace. His expression was as if he had seen a ghost. His shock was filled with disbelief. He, Nicholas, had risen to prominence during the late stages of the First Great Divine Infernal War. It was precisely because of his meritorious service of killing many powerful experts of the human race that he received the favor of a Dark Overlord after the fall of several Dark Overlords and became the successor of the Dark Overlord. What's going on? In the surroundings, many experts from the immemorial world, who were ready to make a move, were also puzzled. However, with this change, some experts who wanted to take advantage of the situation had no choice but to stop what they were doing and consider whether it was appropriate to take advantage of the situation. It was true that the Dark Monarch was above the experts at the 9th tier of the divine level. However, when faced with over 1,000 experts at the 9th tier of the divine level, the Dark Monarch would probably be seriously injured. At the same time, there were also experts who had to consider whether they could withstand the revenge of a race with such shocking potential. At the same time, Doris, the Angel of Wisdom, also saw a glimmer of hope while considering whether to punish the human race and curb their power. A glimmer of hope to take revenge on the demon realm for tempting Lucifer to betray them last time. On the mountain range, Doris looked at Nine Abyss Emperor who was gradually being surrounded. Her eyes flickered, and in a moment, she plucked an angel feather from the 6 pairs of pure white wings on her back. After injecting some information, the angel feather turned into a stream of light, broke through the void, and went straight to heaven. At this moment, in the various light kingdoms above the heavens, the gods of light were also vaguely watching the northern sea and the Xianyuan Mound. The appearance of over 1,000 Tier 9 divine level experts was truly astonishing. The appearance of over 1,000 9th heaven divine level experts shocked the light gods, but they weren't as wary as they had imagined. Heaven had dominated the multiverse, and its strength was definitely beyond the imagination of the average powerhouse. However, the gods of light were rather strange. They remembered very clearly that some of the activities and figures in the sky above the North Sea had died directly or indirectly at the hands of some of them. It was impossible for him to still be alive. The human race has some kind of heaven-defying secret treasure? This was the thought of many powerful radiant god-kings in the country of light. There must be something fishy going on. Their gazes were filled with scrutiny, greed, and passion. How precious was a treasure that could revive a person! In the kingdom of the first radiant god king, Michael, there were 12 pairs of gigantic angel wings on the huge radiant god throne. Holy light illuminated the heavens. The powerful divine radiance caused countless light gods to pale in comparison. While the other light gods had different expressions and thoughts, Michael's eyes flickered with an agitated divine radiance. His gaze landed on the 9 Abyss Emperor. His eyes were cold and carried a feeling of indifference toward the world. It was obvious that he was scheming something. Just then, a stream of pure white flowing light broke through void space and flew out. Michael frowned and stretched out a hand. The stream of light instantly landed on his palm. Holding the angel feather in his hand, which had a hint of fragrance, even someone as holy as this God-king felt a slight change in his heart. Thinking of that beauty, the God-king's unwavering heart couldn't help but stir slightly. If he could bring that beauty into his harem, he would definitely be bestowed with endless favors. In the demonic world, there were many dark sovereigns, and it was rumored that there was even a ranking list. That angel of wisdom was ranked at the top of the list of temptations or capture alive. Those dark sovereigns had long coveted that angel of wisdom's beauty. In the past, she was even ranked before the morning light angel, Lucifer. As the number 1 radiant God-king, he also had such thoughts. It was just that all these years, he had been protecting his holy image in the eyes of billions of angels. Soon, that person has already promised me that as long as I can advance to become the 14th paramount of heaven, Doris, I will no longer have any scruples. Just the thought of being able to hold such an alluring beauty in his arms, with his long golden hair hanging down to his waist and his 12 large wings of light gently trembling, divine King Michael couldn't help but reveal a smile on his handsome and holy face. Soon, a portion of the information in the angel feather in his hand entered his mind. Michael pondered for a moment. Doris's thoughts to a certain extent coincided with his, and he also needed to use this opportunity to divert the attention of the other radiant sovereigns so that he could complete that important task at ease. With a thought, he summoned several powerful 6-winged angels. God-king. The 6 six-winged angels entered through the grand radiant palace. The vast aura of light of the 6 angels surged. Their pseudo-supreme level light divine power was exceptionally grand. The eyes of the 6 six-winged angels were filled with respect. Michael's gaze landed on the 6 angels. Although they weren't the first generation of ancient angels, they were still the best of the angels in heaven. Each of them was a king of light of a region. They were only one step away from the position of sovereign. Hill, George, Duncan, Turner, Oliver, Anderson, I called the 6 of you here. I have an important task for you. Michael pondered for a moment before explaining Doris's plan to redeem Emperor 9 Abyss. Are you confident that you can complete this task and spread the light of our Lord? The 6 ancient 6-winged angels were all loyal to the God of Light. Hearing that they could teach the demon race a lesson and take the opportunity to redeem a dark sovereign of the demon world, they were abnormally excited. The 6 six-winged angels bowed at the same time, their expressions cold and insistent. Rest assured, God-king. We will definitely assist Her Highness Doris in completing the redemption plan. With that, the 6 six-winged angels entered the primordial world through the gates of heaven. However, when they entered the primordial world, the 6 six-winged angels began to carefully conceal their auras and approached the 9 human domains. Chapter 1734. In the demon realm, the other 11 dark sovereigns also noticed the 3rd demon realm and the 4th demon realm's actions toward the 9 regions of the human race. All the dark sovereigns looked at this scene with different expressions. Many dark sovereigns also saw the Abyss Emperor's predicament. However, most of them did not take any action. Instead, some people's gazes landed on the 3rd demon realm, which was currently rather empty. In the demon realm, there were not many opportunities to expand one's territory. However, there were also some dark sovereigns who noticed the identities of some 9th heaven divine level experts who had rushed out from the northern seas underground. Almost like the light gods in the heavens, a portion of the darkness gods also had their gazes on the human race's sacred temple. Treasures were tempting. With so many covetous gazes, even if the human race could survive this calamity, it would probably be very difficult for them to get close to the human race in the future. Northern Sea, Xian Yuan Tomb. As a portion of the experts in the side chambers were revived, Qin Feng gradually came to the depths of the Xian Yuan tomb. He was already very close to Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's mausoleum. In the front chamber of Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's mausoleum, Qin Feng saw a rather strange coffin. The coffin was completely golden in color. The most peculiar thing was that the coffin was surrounded by strange formations. There was also an 8 trigrams mirror that emitted golden light above the coffin. This was already the depths of the mausoleum. Generally speaking, an emperor's mausoleum could be divided into the front chamber, the main chamber, and the back chamber. Other than that, there was also the side chamber, the carriage chamber, the rain chamber, the doorway, and so on. In the mausoleum, even some experts who were willing to be buried with the emperor could only stay in the side chamber and not enter the main chamber of the mausoleum. It was a little unbelievable to see such a strange coffin in the front chamber of the mausoleum. Unless it's someone who's extremely important to Emperor Huang Xianyuan. Qin Feng's heart skipped a beat as he looked at the huge golden coffin. His gaze swept across the surroundings. The front chamber of the mausoleum was abnormally spacious, like a giant's palace. Many huge stone pillars supported the stone chamber's dome. Above the dome, one seemed to be able to see the pitch-black and boundless starry sky. Above the starry sky, stars appeared. From Qin Feng's vision, there were 7 huge stars that shone with the strongest brilliance. The starlight connected together, forming the shape of a spoon. The starlight landed faintly around the golden coffin in the front chamber, forming a strange suppressive force. 7 stars of evil execution? Qin Feng looked pensive. The 7 stars were the Big Dipper. Looking at the various decorations around the golden coffin and the innate 8 trigrams mirror on top of the golden coffin, Zhong Yu could tell that they had formed a massive evil-suppressing seal. Such a huge seal was used to seal a huge golden coffin. Qin Feng frowned. The silver-white starlight faintly sealed off the path to the front room. The power contained within was extremely powerful. Combined with the remaining power of the Xianyuan sovereign after his death in the Xianyuan tomb, ordinary sovereigns would probably not be able to break this huge 7 stars seal. Could it be that the mausoleum of Emperor Xianyuan is a place where demons are sealed? Emperor Huang Xianyuan built the mausoleum here not only to protect the divine palace of the human race, but also to suppress the monster in the golden coffin. As he pondered, Qin Feng circulated his eternal god power and made a slight deduction. Combining it with a wisp of Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's aura in the tomb, Qin Feng used his divine power to reverse time and space, and saw a part of the vague fragmented impression. A moment later, Qin Feng withdrew his divine power and shook his head slightly. The truth was somewhat different from what he had guessed. However, there was one thing that he had guessed correctly. There was indeed a very powerful monster suppressed in the golden coffin. Recalling the identity of that monster in the divine energy deduction, Qin Feng's eyes narrowed as a smile appeared on his face. Yellow Emperor Xianyuan, let me give you a hand and solve this problem. Qin Feng glanced at the huge golden coffin and slowly walked towards it. Bang! An invisible wave of light shot out from within 90 feet of the golden coffin. The invisible power could affect time and space. Ordinary god-level experts could only retreat when they encountered such power. Otherwise, if they forced their way forward, it was very likely that their divine soul would be shattered. A beam of golden light shot out from Qin Feng's body. Without any sound or presence, a layer of seal within the golden divine light suddenly fell apart, turning into countless invisible fragments that fell to the ground. Ding ding dang dang. One could even hear the sound of glass falling to the ground. The starlight of the Big Dipper above the dome dimmed, and more than half of the extremely powerful suppression force was removed. Only the 8 trigrams mirror above the huge golden coffin was left. The golden divine light landed on the golden light, and there was an extremely powerful suppression force. The righteous chi of heaven and earth. It was the innate 8 trigrams mirror that triggered another kind of evil suppressing force in heaven and earth. However, it was difficult to do it alone. Without the suppression of the Big Dipper, the righteous chi of heaven and earth that was activated by the 8 trigrams mirror was somewhat lacking. Sizzle sizzle. Qin Feng saw that an extremely evil aura of death began to spread out from the golden coffin. When it came into contact with the vast righteous chi, it was like a flame coming into contact with grease, making sizzling sound. That extremely evil death aura seemed to come from the depths of hell. It was an evil power that came from the depths of one's heart. Bang bang bang! A strange sound came from the golden coffin. At first, it was extremely dull. But gradually, an extremely strange atmosphere came from the strange sound. It was like the sound of mysterious footsteps from the depths of darkness. It was dull and powerful, but filled with the evil and ghastly aura of death. Bang bang bang! An extremely evil power was released. Wung wung wung! The golden 8 trigrams mirror above his head trembled violently as if it was hit by a huge impact. It could no longer suppress it. Qin Feng's expression remained unchanged. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked over. The 8 trigrams mirror's surface seemed to have received a terrifying attack every time the sound pulsated. A terrifying crack appeared on the surface of the mirror. Bang! Finally, moments later, the innate 8 trigrams mirror let out a loud explosion and shattered into countless golden shards that scattered everywhere. Boom boom boom! The overwhelming evil aura turned into solid black smoke that was emitted from the golden coffin. The entire front room of the tomb was stirred up and the ground shook. That's pretty powerful. Qin Feng's lips curled into a sinister smile. He did not stop the evil being that was about to be born. The countless objects that were buried with the tomb in the front room were all over the place, and the sky was on the verge of collapsing. However, the starry sky above the dome seemed to have another mystery that firmly restrained the extremely evil aura that was about to be born. Bang! As a power that could burn the heaven and earth was released, the entire golden coffin lid was suddenly flipped over by the huge force and flew into the sky. As if it had smelled the blood of living beings, a terrifying existence that was covered in flames suddenly stood up. It turned its gaze and locked onto Qin Feng. An extremely evil and terrifying aura shrouded the area. The flames seemed to have cut through time and space, burning one's soul to ashes. Accompanied by a shriek that could tear one's soul, a ball of flames suddenly rushed towards Qin Feng. Vaguely, a pair of extremely bloodthirsty red eyes could be seen. Chapter 1735. Qin Feng got a good look at her appearance the moment she jumped out. It was a zombie progenitor. Hitorigami. This Hitorigami was probably the first zombie progenitor born in the multiverse. The ferocious Hitorigami flames in her body were enough to incinerate heaven and earth. Her destructive power was close to that of a supremacy. Qin Feng's expression didn't change. As the terrifying Hitorigami charged over, he reached out with a hand. It was an ordinary hand, but it held time and space in place. The entire front room seemed to freeze. The falling stones, debris, dust, and whirlwind seemed to be frozen in place. Even the terrifying Hitorigami was no exception. The Hitorigami's true form was that of an extremely beautiful woman. She wore a tight red battle armor that perfectly outlined her tall, slender figure. Most shocking of all were her wonderful curves, which shook the soul and caused the eyes to undulate uncontrollably. Her hair was as red as blood, and carried with it a scarlet flame that resembled a waterfall. Her exquisite features were currently filled with a ferocity that could incinerate the heavens. 2 sharp fangs protruded from her bright red lips, looking exceptionally cruel and savage. Ah! Restrained, the Hitorigami grew even more violent. Terrifying flames erupted from her body in an attempt to break free from Qin Feng's suppression. Although you've become a Hitorigami, your soul has been blinded by the tyrannical aura. You don't know how to use it, and only have a savage, bloodthirsty nature. No wonder the Yellow Emperor sealed you here." Qin Feng shook his head, his palm suppressing the void. No matter how savage the Hitorigami was, she couldn't escape his suppression. The zombie progenitor's identity was now clear as day. Rumor had it that when Xianyuan Autarch was still alive, he was a romantic and elegant man with 3,000 women. He had countless children, and one of them was called Nu Ba. Nu Ba was extremely beautiful, publicly acknowledged as the #1 beauty of the human race. Her talent was outstanding as well, and she had long since reached the divine realm. The Yellow Emperor doted on her greatly. However, during the First Great War of Gods and Demons, Nu Ba was fatally wounded and died for no reason. After losing his beloved daughter, Sovereign Xianyuan could only choose a place with good feng shui to bury her. However, Emperor Huang Xianyuan had no idea that Nu Ba had been targeted by an extremely evil existence that was born at the beginning of the world after she was buried. It was a great demon god that was born in the devil realm in accordance with the laws of heaven and earth. The great demonic god's name was changed to Ho. It was born from the resentment of heaven and earth. That great demonic god was extremely powerful, and when he invaded the human race, he was killed by a few almighty beings of the human race's divine temple. His true body was torn apart, and among his 3 souls and 7 spirits, only the remaining 3 managed to escape. In order to take revenge on the Yellow Emperor Xianyuan, a part of Bai's soul sneaked into Nu Ba's burial ground and tried to seize the opportunity to seize Nu Ba's body. However, this great demonic god was wrong about one thing. Nu Ba had indeed fallen, but there was another mystery to her burial ground. Following the intensification of the First Great War of Gods and Demons, the ground tilted and the earth veins changed. Nu Ba's resting place fell into an extremely corpse-nurturing ground. What was a corpse-nurturing ground? There was a saying in the ancient books. The mysteries of heaven were difficult to discern and even more difficult to master. Carefully search for the dragon and recognize the stars. The hair meridian pulls out the heart acupoint, the wind hides and kills the purple grass. The bone stone is golden in color, the movement of yin and yang is clear. This yin tomb has the status of a supreme being. When the coffin is buried in it, the corpse can steal the light of the sun and moon, absorb the essence of the mountains and rivers of the world, and gather the boundless baleful aura in the depths of the earth. After being buried in that corpse-nurturing ground for 1,000 years, Nu Ba's originally powerful spiritual consciousness had long recovered after being nourished. Moreover, it had absorbed boundless baleful aura and become extremely powerful. Although Bai was powerful, his soul was still incomplete. An incomplete soul could not do anything to Nu Ba in a short period of time. In addition, Emperor Huang Xianyuan had already discovered the mutation of the corpse-nurturing ground. He had no choice but to run. Bai gritted his teeth and chose to completely fuse his 3 souls with Nu Ba's 3 souls and 7 spirits. Bai was a famous great demonic god. He was one of the few great demonic gods of the devil realm that was born at the beginning of the world, along with the 13 Dark Supremes. He had the ability to attack the Dark Lord. After obtaining Bai's 3 souls, Nu Ba immediately underwent a huge change. Her originally innate fire attribute fused with Bai's ability to absorb the resentment of the world and become immortal. In addition to the boundless baleful aura underground, she finally became the first zombie in the world. However, after fusing with a part of Bai's soul, Nu Ba was incomparably powerful. At that time, her spiritual consciousness was blinded by the resentment and baleful aura in her body, causing her to become cruel and murderous. Only by absorbing blood could she temporarily suppress the ferocity in her body. After the First Great War of the Gods and Demons, Emperor Huang Xianyuan built a huge 7 stars seal in the mausoleum to suppress Nu Ba. At the same time, He attracted the righteous energy of the world to help Nu Ba temper the boundless baleful aura and resentment in her body. Although Qin Feng did not see the whole story with his own eyes, Qin Feng could roughly deduce it. Qin Feng looked at Nu Ba from head to toe and said with a smile, "It just so happens that I'm lacking a maidservant here. Let me give you a hand." As an eternal who had perfected the law of death, the divine power in Qin Feng's body was under the control of the six paths. A golden light flashed in Qin Feng's palm. A golden talisman appeared. The brilliance flowed and seemed to be able to stabilize the endless void of the world. The eternal talisman. The eternal talisman at this time was different. When Qin Feng was the king of the Asa celestial race, he gave the three celestial empresses the eternal talisman. The image on the talisman showed the shape of a six-pointed star. Each point of the six-pointed star represented a representation. At this time, the golden eternal talisman had changed from a six-pointed star to a seven-pointed star. The brilliance flashed and instantly fell on Nu Ba's forehead, sinking her forehead into the depths of her mud-pill palace. In an instant, it merged with the undying spiritual consciousness in the depths of her mud-pill palace. Rumble! Like a whale sucking in water, the billowing flames in Nu Ba's body, like a god of fire, began to merge into her red short skirt and armor, under her snow-white jade-like skin. The terrifying baleful aura and resentment in his eyes slowly disappeared, completely devoured by the eternal talisman. It turned into a soft and huge force, nourishing the undying spiritual sense and completely transforming it into the power of zombie and drought demon annihilation. The terrifying red color in Nu Ba's blood-red eyes dissipated, turning into a pair of black and white eyes, like the starry sky. Nu Ba's bright and beautiful eyes slowly became lively, revealing her spirituality. Her exquisite and beautiful facial features became vivid, and the fangs at the corner of her mouth were hidden in the corners of her charming red lips. "This is," she raised her head, her starry eyes were slightly hazy, but soon fell on a black-robed man in front of her. At this time, the black-robed man was looking at her with a slightly strange expression. Soon, she felt a trace of coldness appear on her delicate body. This trace of coldness seemed to be lingering around her body. Following this gaze, she lowered her head and looked at her naked body. The atmosphere stagnated. Chapter 1736. Beautiful beyond compare. Just now, the violent impact of the aura had completely shattered the layer of battle dress on her body. However, she did not immediately scream like ordinary women. Instead, she appeared natural and unrestrained. In front of Qin Feng, a crimson flame surged out from under her skin and turned into a new battle dress around her body, covering her soul-stirring delicate body. Feeling the eternal talisman in the depths of her soul, Nu Ba already knew what kind of existence this black-robed man in front of her was. "You saved me just because you took a fancy to my beauty?" After pondering for a moment, Nu Ba looked at Qin Feng. She went straight to the point. "Other than your appearance, what other use do you have for me?" Qin Feng raised his eyebrows, his expression indifferent. Nu Ba's beautiful face twitched slightly, and she felt a little uncomfortable in her heart, but she quickly suppressed this emotion. She just said indifferently, "I won't listen to your every word. Although you helped me just now, if you're not satisfied, you can take my life again." Qin Feng stared at this outstanding beauty as he faintly spoke. "Don't you know that I can help the human race? As long as you are willing to obey me, the human race will be able to stand among the strong races of the ancient world without shedding blood. Even the Devil Realm will have to give the human race some leeway. To be able to live freely under the ancient sky, isn't that the goal of countless human powerhouses?" Coercion and bribery, Qin Feng was already very familiar with it. Looking at his few women, most of them were taken by him in this way. As a powerhouse with willfulness in his bones, this kind of thing was a matter of course for him. Nu Ba was obviously not used to this kind of domineering style, but she was silent for a moment and said coldly, "If the human race needs to rely on others to straighten their backs, then this kind of freedom is not worth it. It is better to exterminate the race." "What a valiant style!" Qin Feng only raised his eyebrows and nodded. "Well, you don't have to listen to me, but you are still my woman. You saved me, and I don't dislike being your woman." The puppet girl nodded with a calm look in her eyes. As soon as she finished speaking, she gazed out of Xian Yuan's tomb. There, a great battle raged on. However, the human temple had basically gained the upper hand. Many powerful demon gods and great demon gods had already begun to fall. The Dark Lord who had led his troops here was already surrounded. In the immemorial world, heaven and the devil world were not the home turf. He couldn't allow too many sovereigns of darkness or sovereigns of light to enter the immemorial world. Unless more than 4 supreme beings of the heaven and the demonic realm awakened at the same time and suppressed the 4 great sacred beasts guarding the Archean world, only then would they be able to extinguish the human race. Don't worry. Although heaven and the demonic realm will be even more wary of the human race after this battle, they won't be able to do anything in the short term. At most, they can only use some of the strong races in the Archean world to wear down the human race's war potential. Qin Feng said with an indifferent expression, "The most important thing right now is to revive your father." "You can revive my father?" The female puppet's body shook as she stared at Qin Feng with her beautiful eyes. Nu Ba's eyes were filled with disbelief. Who was her father? The Yellow Emperor Xianyuan, an existence that was said to be able to compete with the supreme beings. "Let's go." Qin Feng's expression was indifferent and he didn't answer directly. He looked at the depths of the great tomb of Xianyuan. Whether or not he could make use of this opportunity to condense an eternal sacred body would depend on whether or not he could revive sovereign Xianyuan. Above the northern sea, more than half of the demonic clouds that covered the sky had dissipated. Beams of divine light filled the sky, and the sound of metal clashing filled the air. The sky above seemed to be cracking and shattering in the intense battle. Above the endless void, the stars and sunlight shone on this region that was covered in snow all year round. "Humans, do you really want to fight to the death with the demonic realm?" The Nine Abyss Emperor looked at the experts of the human race's sacred palace in a threatening manner. In the surroundings, many extremely powerful 9th-tier divine-level experts stared coldly at the Abyss Heavenly Emperor. Xianyuan Wuji stood at the front and said coldly, "Nine Abyss, you brazenly led the 3rd and 4th demonic realms to attack the Northern Sea. Have you never thought that this day would come? Even if we have to pay a great price today, we will kill you here," Xianyuan Wuji said resolutely. Looking at the cold gazes of the human experts around him, the Nine Abyss Emperor secretly regretted. He started this battle only to teach the humans a lesson and regain his face. At the same time, he also wanted to take advantage of the humans. Kill. The terrifying atmosphere was on the verge of erupting. In an instant, hundreds of 9th Heaven Divine Realm experts joined forces and attacked the Nine Abyss Emperor. Above the void, there was a huge fluctuation that drowned out everything. Outside the 9 regions of the human race, Emperor Nicholas looked at the Nine Abyss Emperor, who was drowned out by the human experts with a cold smile. The Nine Abyss Emperor's original plan was feasible. First, he would use the human wave tactic to delay the experts of the 9 regions. Then, he would lead a group of great demonic gods of the demonic realm and use the decapitation tactic to divert the attention of the experts of the human race's sacred palace. Then, he would activate his spies in the depths of the human race and take away some of the humans at lightning speed. Or, he would send experts to infiltrate the lower realms occupied by the human race and drag away some of the humans. If he was lucky after this battle, he would definitely be able to gain the favor of the darkness overlords and improve his cultivation. Of course, he, Nicholas, would also be able to reap the benefits and tear off a piece of flesh from the human race's 9 regions. But just as the plan entered the second step, it was completely ruined. The foundation of the human race was much greater than he had imagined. There were actually so many ninth heaven divine realm old antiques under the northern sea. At this point, not only did the 9 Abyss Emperor fail to reap any benefits, he had also sacrificed himself. Emperor Nicholas took a look and immediately tore through the void, turning into a streak of black light and quietly returning to the demonic realm. You can't blame him for not being loyal to his friends. The instant he left, several streaks of light appeared on the mountain peak. One of the figures held a huge pearl in his hand. It was flowing with a clear light, as if it was reflecting all the scenes around the mountain peak. Looking in the direction of the demonic realm, several figures exuding holy light exchanged glances, their eyes filled with smiles. They had long discovered the existence of Emperor Nicholas and had been monitoring him from afar. With Emperor Nicholas's departure, the 9 Abyss Emperor had become a turtle in a jar. Looks like we really don't have to take action this time. In the swamp in the southeast corner, a group of experts from the witch race saw that the situation was settled and also settled down. After this battle, the human race should also consider expanding. A witch race elder had a relaxed smile on his face. Chapter 1737. Just as the sorcerer race was feeling optimistic in the demonic world, the Dark Sovereign's divine wills intertwined. The 9 Abyss Emperor is one of the Dark Sovereigns of our demonic world. It's one thing for him to be taught a lesson, but we can't let him die in the hands of humans. That's right. If we let him die in the hands of humans, those lords will probably blame us when they awaken. We, the 13 Dark Sovereigns, are ultimately one entity. Don't forget that the immemorial world is protected by the immemorial sacred beast. Every sacred beast isn't inferior to those lords behind us. Some Dark Sovereigns poured cold water on them. The atmosphere among the Dark Sovereigns was a little tense. The 4 immemorial sacred beasts were the guardian sacred beasts of the immemorial world. They were extremely powerful and chaotic, only acting on instinct. Once the immemorial sacred beasts retaliated, it would be troublesome for the Dark Sovereigns. The Dark Sovereigns were all selfish people. They weren't willing to take the risk for the 9 Abyss Emperor. Our luck shouldn't be that bad. The 4 immemorial sacred beasts also hibernate in the depths of the 4 poles. As long as we work together, the immemorial sacred beasts shouldn't make a move for the time being. A Dark Sovereign laughed dryly and broke the silence. Just as he said that, another Dark Sovereign spoke coldly. Prepare to make a move. The 9 Abyss Emperor is about to be beaten to death. Right now, above the northern sea, the Abyss Heavenly Emperor's situation was already teetering on the verge of collapse. Under the group attacks of several hundred Tier 9 divine level experts, the Abyss Heavenly Emperor continued to bleed profusely, and his Dark Monarch's physique was almost crushed. In the depths of heaven, the number 1 Radiant God King, Michael, took the opportunity to enter the depths of heaven while all the Radiant Gods were focused on the immemorial world. It was a floating island in the depths of heaven. On the island there was an extremely dense radiant energy seeping out from the center, faintly shaking the boundless void world. It was extremely majestic. It seemed to be a huge node where countless laws of heaven and earth intertwined. On the floating island, countless divine palaces stood in great numbers, looking holy and pure. Around the floating island, there were countless smaller holy floating islands, like guards guarding the floating island. They were densely packed and stretched to the end of the void. In fact, the floating island in Michael's eyes was a little inconspicuous among the countless floating islands. If it was anyone else who came here for the first time, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the floating islands. However, as the first God King of Light whom the God of Light was attached to, Michael was no ordinary person. He often came here to meet the God of Light and listen to the God of Light's teachings. However, there was a hint of hesitation in Michael's eyes. Once he took this step, he would no longer have a way out. Michael, why are you still hesitating? The next step forward is the supreme position of dominator. There are limited positions of dominators in heaven. Now is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you can devour the God of Light, you will be the second God of Light. At this moment, a mysterious voice spoke in his mind. But if we fail, Michael said slowly. There was a look of struggle in his eyes. The 13 Light Supremes had ruled the heavenly hall for countless years. In the hearts of the Light Gods, their majesty was deeply rooted. Even though Michael had a strong desire to make progress, he could not suppress the instinctive fear in his heart. There will always be some risks when doing great things. Could it be that you are willing to stay on the position of God King and become a living puppet? Could it be that you don't feel despair? The mysterious voice was cold. Despair, how could he not feel despair? As the first God King of heaven, he was not like the Lords of Darkness, where the competition was fierce. It seemed that many Lords of Darkness had been replaced. Michael had always been on the position of God King of Light. It had not changed for hundreds of millions of years. Michael had once asked himself whether he was full of loyalty and respect for the 13 Light Supremes. However, the unwillingness and anxiety of not being able to take another step forward in hundreds of millions of years had eroded him, causing him to feel more and more despair. The 13 Light Supremes were like 13 huge stones that stood in the way of heaven. Sometimes, Michael even thought that if he was like the angel of morning light, Lucifer, who was tempted by the Darkness Supremes and given the supreme position, he might not be able to resist and fall into the demonic world. You have no way out. Do it. The mysterious voice spoke in his mind again. Michael was silent. After a moment, he raised his head. The usual indifferent majesty in his eyes turned into an extremely strong ferocity. He strode toward the floating island in the center where the God of Light was sleeping. Above the void, a pure white path appeared, stretching all the way to the floating island in the center. North Sea, Emperor Xuanyuan's mausoleum. After passing through the front room of the mausoleum and walking through a long doorway, Qin Feng began to enter the main tomb in the center. Emperor Xuanyuan's mausoleum was the resting place of Emperor Xianyuan. It was built extremely majestically. When they entered the doorway, there were many unusually tall and majestic soldiers buried with them. These huge soldiers were dozens of feet tall and made of brass. They held huge axes and sharp blades as they guarded the doorway. Each one of them looked ferocious and had a very terrifying aura. They were all puppets. They were made with the secret spells of spell cultivators and had extremely strong combat power. If someone who did not know the trick and entered rashly, it would cause a chain reaction that would kill them. But Qin Feng was not the kind of person who did not know the trick. He and Nu Ba calmly walked into the tomb. On both sides of the main tomb, Qin Feng saw many huge mausoleums built around the main tomb through the doorway. Those mausoleums were the same as Emperor Xuanyuan's mausoleum. They were unusually gorgeous and had different styles. Ever since Nu Ba entered here, she had a look of reminiscence on her face. She looked at the mausoleums with a slightly complicated look in her eyes. In those mausoleums, the women buried in them were the Yellow Emperor Xuanyuan's confidant. They were all extraordinary women. They were also peerless beauties. They had accompanied Emperor Huang Xianyuan for most of his life. Some of them had taken the initiative to die for love after Emperor Huang Xianyuan died, and were buried here. Can you resurrect them? A slightly warm voice sounded at the entrance of the passageway. Qin Feng followed Nu Ba's gaze and glanced at it. There was a trace of indifference in his eyes. That will depend on your father's attitude. After saying that, Qin Feng stepped into the passageway. A huge circular main tomb that looked like a boundless underground palace appeared in front of Qin Feng. It was incomparably tall. Stone pillars reached the sky and supported the dome. It was as if they had arrived at the kingdom of giants. On both sides were stone statues holding long swords. The stone statues were divided into several rows, filling up most of the main tomb. There were no less than a few hundred of them. Looking at these huge stone statues, Nuba was stunned at first. Then, a trace of sparkling appeared in her beautiful eyes. Chapter 1738. Her sadness was hard to hide. Qin Feng's gaze swept across Nuba's beautiful face. Nuba closed her eyes slightly and controlled her emotions. She seemed to have seen Qin Feng's gaze and slowly spoke. "They are my elder brothers." Qin Feng fell silent. Emperor Huang Xianyuan claimed to have 3,000 imperial concubines. In fact, the number of his children was even more than the number of his lovers. Many of his lovers had given birth to children for him. Among these children, other than a small number who died due to various accidents, most of them survived. There were many extremely talented people who had even become famous in a region. For example, Xianyuan Wuji's lineage. However, in the First Great Divine Demon War, not only did Sovereign Xianyuan die, but most of Sovereign Xuanyuan's children also died in this war. Nuba was just one of them. There were many terrifying traps around the main chamber, some of which contained divine power. Even pseudo-supremes and pseudo-supremes would have to avoid them. There were even more mysteries above the eye-catching dome. It was filled with many mysterious, misleading traps. It made the entire mausoleum look like it was filled with killing intent. However, to Qin Feng and Nuba, these traps did not pose a threat. Passing through the area where the Xianyuan children had transformed into stone statues before the matriarch, there was a high platform in front of them. On the high platform, one could vaguely see the heavens, earth, sun, moon, stars, and the universe. Under the starlight there were 9 huge cauldrons. Other than the 9 cauldrons, there were also many burial items around them. Many of them flickered with spiritual light. They were extremely powerful treasures. Many battle armors, sabers, swords, axes, and many divine weapons were sealed. There were also a few supreme treasures that Emperor Huang Xianyuan had used to defeat Qiyu, the demon region's master, the south-pointing chariot, the Hotian wind bag, the Kuei ox war drum, and so on. Even a 9th-tier divine-level expert would see a great improvement in their strength after obtaining these treasures. However, these treasures were surrounded by killing intent. If one were to rashly take them, they would activate the traps in the entire tomb. Qin Feng's gaze landed on the high platform, on the huge cauldron. "That's the ancient cauldron, one of Father's most important treasures." Nuba noticed Qin Feng's gaze and said indifferently, "Father once hoped to use this to form a giant formation between the mountains and rivers, to refine the 100 domains of the human race into one. However, before the primordial cauldron could be successfully refined, the first great fiend god war had already erupted. If the Xianyuan cauldron had been successfully refined before the first war between the gods and demons, the heavenly hall and the demonic realm would not have been able to injure my father that easily." There was a trace of regret in Nuba's voice. This primordial cauldron contains a part of the primordial world's origin. If it can be set up into a formation and smelt a part of the origin of heaven and origin of earth, Xianyuan Ji will probably have the ability to achieve the karmic rank of Celestial Emperor. He will indeed be able to contend against the 26 sovereigns. Qin Feng nodded and commented, "Celestial Emperor karmic rank?" Nuba's beautiful eyes looked at Qin Feng. She was a little surprised and puzzled. The Celestial Emperor karmic rank was a supreme karmic rank nurtured by the origin of heaven and earth. Those who possessed the Celestial Emperor karmic rank were at the same level as the Supreme Dominator. However, there were also differences in the Heavenly Emperor karmic rank. The more powerful the continent, the more powerful the Celestial Emperor karmic rank would be. It was similar to the primitive continent. The Celestial Emperors of the Heavenly Court were incomparably powerful. However, the primitive Celestial Emperor karmic rank was divided by a few experts and turned into the 6 celestial emperors. The power of the celestial emperor karmic rank was greatly weakened. What Xianyuan Ji sought was the only celestial emperor karmic rank in the primordial world. Once he succeeded, he would definitely be able to achieve a supreme cause on par with the 4 guardian sacred beasts, the 26 heavenly halls, and the supreme demonic realm. Qin Feng did not think too much. His gaze fell on the 9 cauldrons. These 9 cauldrons were not idle here for no reason. There was another mystery. I'm afraid that the celestial and demon races would never have thought that there would be such a huge dragon vein under the North Sea. After taking a few glances, Qin Feng immediately praised inwardly. The dragon vein was a type of spiritual vein. However, it was the most special kind of spiritual vein. It could be said that it was born by combining the origin of heaven, origin of earth, origin of man, and a part of the continent's destiny. The dragon vein was related to the future of the primordial world, this vast and boundless continent. If other races discovered that there was a huge dragon vein under the North Sea's Xianyuan Mound, they would most likely fight for it. This was because his involvement was too great. Rumor had it that there were only 4 dragon veins in the primordial world. The 4 dragon veins were guarded by the 4 guardian sacred beasts. It was because of the 4 dragon veins that the 4 guardian sacred beasts could achieve the same karmic rank as the 26 supreme sovereigns. This was the 5th dragon vein that was gathered. The 9 immemorial cauldrons gathered here to suppress this huge dragon vein. If not for the fact that he wanted to take a closer look, even Qin Feng would not have noticed anything fishy about it. The 9 immemorial cauldrons were most likely not ordinary treasures. They should be treasures of destiny. They suppressed the dragon vein and gathered the origin of heaven and earth, as well as the continent's destiny. In Qin Feng's opinion, there must be some extremely high-level monarch karmic ranks gathered here. Karmic rank of heaven and earth. 1 life, 2 luck, 3 feng shui, 4 accumulation of yin virtue, and 5 merit. Cultivating luck, feng shui, yin virtue, and merit could all prove the karmic rank of heaven and earth. In the untainted celestial court, there were various imperial emperors, such as the Jade Emperor who ruled the 10,000 heavens, Great Emperor Ziwei who ruled the 10,000 stars, Great Emperor Chongqing who ruled the 10,000 spirits, Great Emperor Gaochen, also known as Great Emperor Tianhuang, who ruled the 10,000 thunders, Great Emperor Qinghua, also known as Great Emperor Tai Nirvana, who ruled the 10,000 confluences, and Earth Empress Hutu who ruled the 10,000 lands. For example, the great emperors of 5 mountains, various celestial lords, Yang Jian's justice great deity, Nez's 3 seas and 3 altars, and the 4 heavenly kings were all karmic ranks nurtured by heaven and earth. With the karmic rank of heaven and earth, not only could one mobilize the power of heaven and earth, but one could also increase one's cultivation speed. Qin Feng divided the karmic rank of heaven and earth into 2 levels. The high-level one was the monarch karmic rank, which included various imperial emperors. From low to high there were imperial emperors, great emperors, gods, and celestial emperors. Imperial emperors were the Emperor Dong Yin, Emperor Qingsu, and so on. The great emperors were the great emperors of 5 mountains, the sovereigns were the imperial elders of the 5 directions, and the heavenly emperors were the 6 royals. The next level was the minister level. The minister level was below the monarch level and could not be referred to as emperor or sovereign. For example, the 4 heavenly masters, the 4 heavenly kings, the pagoda-bearing heavenly kings, the celestial lords, and so on. Qin Feng saw that the 9 huge cauldrons that suppressed the dragon vein had already nurtured 9 powerful karmic ranks. Moreover, they were all sovereign-level karmic rank. Any 9th heaven divine level expert who obtained them and kept them in their body for a short period of time would be able to possess the power of 13 dark overlords. If one of them was able to take in all 9 karmic ranks, there would be at least a 50% chance for that person to become a heavenly emperor. If it was given more time to absorb more dragon vein's essence, the chances would be even higher. Qin Feng's gaze was filled with admiration. Just this plan alone was enough to show that the Yellow Emperor Xianyuan lived up to his reputation as the supreme of a generation. Chapter 1739. Qin Feng looked at the 9 cauldrons, deep in thought. The power of the karmic ranking of heaven and earth had a great effect even on eternity. However, the heavenly emperor karma rank was still a little low for him. It was not worth it for him to make a move. Unless it was the legendary Taoist karma rank that was above the heavenly emperor karma rank. Nuba looked at Qin Feng, waiting for Qin Feng to make a move. There was no doubt that the 9 cauldrons were extremely precious treasures even to the heavenly realm and the demonic world. However, to Nuba's surprise, there was no change in Qin Feng's eyes. Qin Feng went around this high platform. Not far away from the high platform, there was a huge platform that was slightly higher in elevation. The construction there was extremely luxurious, filled with the majesty of an emperor. Qin Feng saw a huge throne. The entire throne was emitting an incomparably majestic aura. On the throne, an emperor in dragon robes sat high above. He looked valiant, and his brows were raised like swords. He had a majestic aura that surpassed the boundaries of the world. He was like a ruler above billions of gods and demons, high and mighty. However, there was also a benevolent aura in the emperor's majesty. Father! Seeing the majestic emperor on the throne, Nuba could not help but kneel on the ground. This is the Yellow Emperor Xianyuan? Qin Feng sized up the domineering emperor. Even though he had fallen for an unknown period of time, this sovereign Xianyuan was still very lifelike. He had a powerful aura that could engulf the world and sweep out in all directions. Anyone who saw him would know that this emperor must have been an unparalleled hero when he was alive. Qin Feng took a closer look, and a faint smile flashed in his eyes. Suddenly, he raised his head. Nuba's expression changed. At the next moment, boom! It was as if an earth-shattering sound came from above. Hundreds of 9th Heaven Divine level experts attacked together. Just as the 9 Abyss Emperor was covered in injuries and his divine body was crumbling, the Dark Lords made their move. A huge void crack was opened, and a few huge hands smashed toward the human race's sacred palace. Besiege Wei to rescue Zhao. The huge demonic palm carried with it a terrifying power that could shatter the sky and destroy the earth. It shattered the void and cracked the sky. Once it hit a human saint, only a few people in the North Sea would be able to escape the calamity. This was an open conspiracy. Despicable. As expected, the group of 9th Heaven Divine level experts did not dare to take the risk of the human race's sacred regions collapsing. Many figures returned to the Xianyuan mound, condensing streams of divine powers to form boundaries to fend off the few huge hands in the void space. Streaks of divine light crisscrossed, shattering those terrifying demonic palms that covered the sky. Only a few human experts were still besieging 9 Abyss Emperor. 9 Abyss Great Emperor's hair was disheveled, and his clothes were stained with blood. However, without the encirclement of hundreds of human experts, the pressure on him was much lighter. After suppressing his anger, he wantonly vented his anger on the powerhouses who were chasing after him. This made it tough for several strong pseudo-honorables. Rumble! Thunder rumbled in the sky, and a huge crack in the void expanded. This was a huge escape route that the 13 sovereigns had opened up for 9 Abyss Emperor. Rumble! Extremely terrifying auras rose from the 4 extremes. The 4 sacred beasts sensed the auras of the 13 sovereigns of darkness and vaguely felt like they were about to awaken from their slumber. The 13 sovereigns of darkness sensed danger, and their huge demonic palms began to retreat into the depths of the spatial crack in the sky. 9 Abyss, why aren't you retreating? The furious bellows of the sovereigns of darkness could be heard from the depths of the spatial crack. Blood light changed, and blood shadows entangled the few pseudo-honorables. Nine Abyss Emperor's gaze was still filled with reluctance. In the Xianyuan mound, a scarlet flame erupted from Nu Ba's eyes. She could not help but want to make a move. Nu Ba had obtained Qin Feng's eternal talisman, and the endless resentment and baleful aura in her body were under her initial control. She had already touched the threshold of the supremacy realm. Although she had yet to break through, she was not much weaker than ordinary sovereigns of darkness. Once she made a move, there was a high chance that Nine Abyss Emperor would have to stay in the North Sea. But at this moment, a hand pressed down on her shoulder. "Don't worry, someone will take care of this guy for you." A slightly magnetic voice sounded, and the murderous glint in Nu Ba's eyes froze for a moment. But then, it slowly disappeared, and the scarlet flames that were emitting from her body slowly retracted under her skin. Qin Feng smiled slightly. He could not let the matter of Nu Ba's resurrection be exposed to the eyes of the light and darkness gods. This was a trump card that could be used at a critical moment. In the void, not long after Qin Feng's words fell, Nine Abyss Emperor turned into a streak of blood light that reached the sky. His entire body was filled with blood-red qi, and he blasted away the encirclement of several pseudo-honorables of the human race, and rushed toward the spatial crack. He turned around and swept his gaze across the human race's divine temple. His eyes were filled with anger, humiliation, and resentment. This time, after returning to the devil world, he swore to take revenge. However, just as he was about to reach the crack in the void, 7 streaks of pure white light energy shot up into the sky from the crack in the void below his feet. In an instant, they surrounded Nine Abyss Emperor and turned into a huge 7-pointed star formation. They were Doris, Hill, George, Duncan, Turner, Oliver, and Anderson. 7 powerful 6-winged angels formed the Heaven Ambush team. The 7 6-winged angels were the top 6-winged angels under the light gods. They were all pseudo-honorable level powerhouses. Taking advantage of the moment when the 7-pointed star formation trapped Nine Abyss Emperor, a white scroll appeared in Doris's hand. It was a scroll that Divine King Michael had given her before she left. According to Divine King Michael, it was bestowed by the God of Light, one of the 13 Supremes of Light. It contained the power of a full blow from the God of Light. Great prophecy technique. Light imprisonment. Following Doris's incantation, the white scroll suddenly floated from Doris's hand, and it quickly opened. It turned into a huge holy light that traversed heaven and earth, and enveloped Nine Abyss Emperor in the center of the 7-pointed star formation. When Doris took out the white scroll, Nine Abyss Emperor's pupils violently contracted, and a terrifying warning came from the depths of his undying demon soul. That was definitely a taboo divine spell scroll. He definitely could not resist it. Countless rays of bloody light expanded around him, trying to open the 7-pointed star formation. However, the power of the 7 6-winged angels was too tyrannical. He was seriously injured, and could not break the 7-pointed star formation in a short time. At this moment, in the devil world, many dark sovereigns looked at this scene with ashen faces. It was too late for them to make a move. No! Following a mournful scream, the huge white scroll turned into a huge ray of light that enveloped Nine Abyss Emperor. In an instant, it turned back into a shrinking scroll and fell into the hands of Doris, the Angel of Wisdom. Vaguely, the pure white scroll had a trace of crimson at the edge, which was exceptionally charming. Success! The 7 6-winged angels were overjoyed. Chapter 1740. Nine Abyss Emperor had fallen into the hands of heaven. Seeing this scene, all the experts were stunned for a moment, and then their expressions changed. The experts of the human clan watched this scene coldly. There was no lack of gloating. The experts of the witch race were similar to the humans. Outside the 9 regions of the human race, Many ancient experts watching the 9 regions of the human race had different expressions. Some were indifferent, some were sneering, and some were mocking. Up in the heavens, the many gods of light who had noticed this scene were overjoyed. This time, heaven finally suppressed the demon world. In the demon world, many dark lords were livid, and there was no lack of fear in their eyes. 9 Abyss Emperor, one of the Dark Lords, had fallen into the hands of heaven. He would definitely be punished by the Dark Lords. Rumble. Almost instantly, the remaining 12 Dark Lords attacked. Even if they were to risk being severely injured by the 4 primordial sacred beasts, they must snatch 9 Abyss Emperor back. The remaining 12 Dark Lords looked at each other and saw the seriousness, coldness, and determination in each other's eyes. Rumble. In an instant, a demonic light that penetrated the universe erupted from the depths of the void crack, sweeping across the sky for hundreds of millions of miles, and wildly bombarding the 7 six-winged angels, Doris, Hill, George, Duncan, Turner, Oliver, and Anderson. How powerful was the combined power of the 12 Dark Lords? Rumble. The 3 six-winged angels closest to them, George, Duncan, and Turner, were instantly drowned in the roar. Watch out! The angel of wisdom Doris' expression changed drastically. Before she could warn them, she only had time to circulate her light divine power and unleash a defensive light divine art to support herself. Bang! A large area of the void shattered, and 2 figures flew across the sky like shooting stars. Puff, puff. One could vaguely see several streaks of blood exploding in the sky like beautiful fireworks. Under the joint attack of the 12 Dark Lords, the remaining 4 six-winged angels, Hill and Oliver, reacted, but it was too late for them to do anything. In an instant, they followed in the footsteps of the previous 3 six-winged angels. The remaining Anderson was the most vigilant and one of the most powerful 6-winged angels. He discovered the attack of the 12 Dark Lords almost at the same time as Doris. He circulated his light divine art and instantly formed millions of light divine shields in front of him. However, the millions of layers of divine light shields only managed to block the attack for an instant before they were completely vaporized by the terrifying pitch-black demonic light and struck his lower body. 2 figures were blasted away. Blood splattered across the sky as they were blasted back several thousand feet. Pure white divine brilliance circulated and froze the void. Only then did they manage to stop their bodies. However, the 2 remaining 6-winged angels were already extremely miserable. Anderson's face was pale as he looked at the crack in the void. His expression was filled with terror. His entire lower body was turning into nothingness, and his 6 wings were all shattered. The core of his heart, the angel's heart that was like a white sun, was also filled with cracks. The intense pain caused him to convulse uncontrollably. He clenched his teeth tightly. This famous great 6-winged angel of heaven had already lost more than half of his life. 100 meters away, Doris, the beautiful angel of wisdom, was also ghastly pale. Her snow-white battle dress was stained with angel blood. Of the 6 gigantic angelic wings on her back, the 3 on the right had been completely shattered. She clutched the scroll tightly with one hand. The shattering of the 3 wings had caused her cultivation to drop by 40 to 50%. He didn't die. The 12 Lords of Darkness looked gloomy. In the heavenly hall, the Radiance gods finally recovered from their shock. When they saw the 12 sovereigns of darkness staring at Doris and Anderson, their expressions turned cold. Doris, Anderson, hurry up and return to heaven with the seal. A cold and majestic voice came from the void. At the same time, a huge gate of heaven appeared in the void. Endless light illuminated the endless void. Inside the gate, auspicious clouds could be seen rolling. Countless little angels were playing peacefully and singing loud and clear sacred music. At the same time, several giant hands that seemed to be condensed by light blasted out from the depths of the gate of heaven and heavily struck the crack in the void. Heaven and the demon world were completely engaged in a battle. At the sight of this, many human race experts were overjoyed. This was really a dog-eat-dog situation. Many human experts looked at the 4 poles, hoping that the 4 sacred beasts could revive sooner. If they could take the opportunity to severely injure the gods of light and darkness in heaven and the demon world, the human race would have at least 10,000 years to recuperate. Many other powerful existences who were scheming in the depths of the void had strange expressions. Not long ago, the 3rd demon world invaded the human race and fought a life and death battle with the human race. How come they were going to wrestle with heaven now? In the depths of the halls of heaven, in the abyss of depravity, there was an extraordinarily terrifying entity who was watching all of this from afar. 12 pairs of incomparably dark wings flapped, like the darkness in the depths of the multiverse. In the demon world, if there was someone who wanted the 12 lords of darkness to fail the most, it would be this existence. In the chaotic demon world, although countless demon gods and great demon gods had been born in the past hundreds of millions of years, there were only 13 lords of darkness. Unless one of them died, the other great demon gods would have a chance to take over. Now Lucifer saw the opportunity. However, at this moment, something happened that almost made everyone temporarily avert their gazes. Rumble. In the world, it was as if there was an explosion of thunder, followed by an angry roar from the depths of the multiverse. In the Xian Yuan tomb, when this earth-shattering roar sounded, Qin Feng raised his head and looked at the void of the multiverse with a surprised expression. Seems like someone finally couldn't hold back and rushed to the forefront. A hint of eagerness appeared on his face. On the side, Nuba frowned and looked at Qin Feng, not understanding what had happened to make this existence in front of her so excited. Of course, Qin Feng was excited. Finally, someone was going to test the waters of the multiverse for him. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Qin Feng wasn't the only one who was staring at the changes in the depths of heaven. At this moment, there were several existences who were scheming quietly in various places. Some were ordinary demon kings who occupied a mountain, some were ordinary demon emperors who established a dynasty in the demon world, and some were simply ordinary members of a certain race. Their gazes quietly intersected with each other in the depths of heaven. What's going on? At this moment, the lords of light and darkness almost simultaneously stopped what they were doing. The lords of light were even more baffled as they looked in the direction of the first country of light. What exactly happened in the depths of heaven? At this moment, no one was paying attention to Doris and Nuba, who were holding the seal of the 9 Nether Emperor. Chapter 1741. In the heavenly hall, countless experts used their divine senses to search for the origin of the loud noise. Soon, they received their answer. However, when they saw this scene, they felt as if a cold current had frozen their souls. They were scared out of their wits. Above the void, there were 2 extremely huge radiant figures confronting each other. "Michael, how dare you betray me?" One of the figures, who was shining like a huge sun, looked at the other figure furiously. "God of Light, what is your name? You should know that you and I are of the same level now. Do you think you can still be so high above me and suppress me?" 1,000 feet away, Michael's expression was indifferent. There was a mighty will on his body that attracted the attention of heaven's origin. With a single thought, he felt that he could mobilize the depths of heaven and have endless power descend. In the eyes of billions of angels, he was like a huge sacred sun. Countless rules of fire surrounded him and were extremely dense. He was above billions of void. Taking advantage of the God of Light's slumber, he seized a part of the God of Light's origin and also obtained a part of heaven's authority over countless planes. Finally, he resonated with the rules of fire in heaven and broke through the realm above the God King. On the surface of Michael's body, 14 pairs of huge flaming wings flap. They were like flames that burned the heavens and the earth. A fiery red mark appeared on his forehead. He was now in high spirits. In the face of the God of Light's anger, he was not afraid at all. However, there was still a trace of regret in his eyes. If he had not misjudged the God of Light's cultivation level, he would not have known that this God of Light had already comprehended spiritual changes and his strength was close to that of a late-stage Supreme God. Otherwise, it was possible that he would have completely absorbed the God of Light's origin and replaced him. However, even if he had only absorbed half of the God of Light's origin, he had completely broken through the God-King realm and reached the highest realm that he had always dreamed of. Starred. From the huge sun formed by the God of Light, there was an extremely angry voice. The huge divine power of the God of Light blasted towards another huge sun. The huge flaming sun formed by Michael did not show any signs of weakness. Kaboom! Millions upon millions of voids shattered as the terrifying power shattered the river. With the collision as the epicenter, countless radiant sacred mountains and light kingdoms within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles were reduced to dust. Dozens of beams of light shot over from the horizon, landing on a holy mountain 1,000,000 kilometers away. Looking at the countless holy mountains that had been reduced to ashes, the kingdom of light was filled with shock and astonishment. Michael, you dare to rebel against your superiors and betray heaven. At the same time, a light monarch yelled angrily. That was the third radiant God-King, Giles, one of the original 13 sovereigns of light. Many of the light sovereigns beside him had similar expressions. Their faces were filled with anger and hatred. In the eyes of the 13 sovereigns of light and the billions of angels, the 13 sovereigns of light were the fathers of light, the founders of the heavenly hall. His divine might is eternal and cannot be blasphemed. Michael had stolen divine power and offended the God of Light. This was an unforgivable sin. Not only the light monarch, but the group of dark monarchs in the depths of the demon world were also astonished. No one would have thought that Michael, known as the most loyal dog of the 13 sovereigns of light, would betray heaven and be so bold as to steal the divine might of the radiant gods. Most importantly, he had succeeded. The eyes of the dark monarchs turned red with jealousy. Michael is actually so crazy. At this moment, in the fallen land, Lucifer and some of the original fallen archangels looked in the direction of heaven in shock. Whether it was heaven or the demon world, Lucifer was the biggest traitor of heaven. But after today, things would probably be reversed. Primordial Era. In the Primordial Era, there had always been news of the 5 primordial races. It was rumored that before the 4 sovereigns of the Primordial Era and the 4 guardian sovereigns of the Primordial Era were truly recognized, there were several extremely powerful races in the Primordial Era. There were 4 extremely powerful race leaders who stood out. Like the primordial gods, they were born in some special primordial chaos land. They had talents that were not inferior to the 26 sovereigns of light. Due to their natural charm, they attracted a large number of primordial humans who followed them. They formed the 4 primordial races in the beginning: the wind race, the fire race, the war race, and the water race. They were also the races at the source before the human race was truly established. The power of the primordial humans was different from the current weak humans. They were born in the primordial chaos lands and were born with immense power that was not inferior to the light gods born in heaven and the darkness demon gods born in the countless voids of the demon world. When the 4 primordial races were first born, they were the 3 overlords on par with the light gods and the darkness god. The 4 primordial races were the fire race, wind race, war race, and water race. Among them, the leader of the wind race was rumored to be the ancestor of the primordial era, Fushi. However, among the 4 races, the most respected wasn't ancestor Fushi, but the leader of the fire race, the Flame Emperor. The 4 primordial races had once dominated the primordial era for billions of years, but with the birth of that extremely evil existence, the glory of the 4 primordial races was destroyed overnight. The huge primordial human race disappeared in a short period of time. That person was called Chiyu. Chiyu was also one of the primordial humans and was extremely talented in cultivation. In the years before the four paragons were born, the primordial humans didn't have a complete cultivation system. They hadn't established the paragon, god-level, emperor, primordial, and other cultivation systems. The cultivation system was chaotic, and many primordial humans could only climb the ladder of higher realms while exploring. It was under such circumstances that Chiyu studied the demon world's demon god cultivation techniques and gave birth to an extremely evil demon. The human race became a demon. Such a demon was born a demon among demons and was much more evil than the various demons in the demon world. Chiyu's appearance directly led to the fall of the Flame Emperor. According to the records, the Flame Emperor tried to reform Chiyu and make him give up on the creation of various demonic cultivation techniques. However, he failed in the end and died in Chiyu's hands. Chiyu's appearance caused the human race, which had already reached its peak, to split apart. Most of the elites were attracted by the demonic cultivation techniques and were affected by them. They all fell and turned into powerful demons. Chiyu was also known as the demon ancestor of the generation and was comparable to the 13 paragons of darkness. Just as the 4 primordial races collapsed, a genius was born from the Yen race. That person was the son-in-law of the Flame Emperor, Emperor Huang Xianyuan, who was later known as the paragon of the human race. His appearance, along with a few other powerhouses who were rumored to have reached the divine realm, resolved the disaster caused by Chiyu. Thus, the human race appeared. But the 4 primordial races didn't perish because of this. The war race merged with the human race, the followers of the wind race went into hiding, and the other 2 races escaped into the vast primordial era and lived in seclusion. Just as Michael succeeded in seizing the throne, the demon ancestor underground was also alarmed. A trace of consciousness woke up from the chaos seal. Chapter 1742. Chiyu had once been a great character. Billions of years ago, the heavenly fiend race he led had almost unified the demon world. His defeat at the hands of Emperor Huang Xianyuan was also a coincidence. He was divided into good and evil. At the most crucial moment, his goodwill had sprouted, and Emperor Huang Xianyuan had seized the opportunity to seal him up. It was a seal, not a kill. Emperor Huang Xianyuan had already killed the demon ancestor of the undying demonic art de Shang. Moreover, he could not kill him either. He could only separate the good and evil bodies, hoping that the indestructible demonic body controlled by the good will would become increasingly stronger and would be able to engulf the indestructible evil will one day. The evil will was sealed in an extremely mysterious sealing ground. Right now, that stream of divine consciousness sensed the world. Furious thoughts seethed, and a baleful aura rose. It had awakened from the seal. In the depths of a mountain, there was a huge underground space that was filled with high temperatures. The space was quite big, and there was thick fiery red lava under their feet. On a crimson-red high platform, a demonic armor suddenly emitted streams of pitch-black demonic light. The demonic light manifested. Sizzle! The terrifying demonic will changed, and scorching temperatures came from the high platform in the surroundings. They turned into overwhelming flames, refining the majestic demonic aura in the depths of the demonic armor. Within a short period of time, the soil turned into fiery red lava, extending out for 10,000 lis. It was a magnificent sight. Xianyuan. Extremely furious demonic aura soared into the air, attempting to fend off the terrifying crimson-red flames in the surroundings. However, this was a type of rare divine flame that was born in the deepest depths of the underground. Roar! As if it had sensed the heaven-shaking, earth-shattering, extremely evil, and extremely turbid demon chi, a huge monster rushed out from the depths of the magma with a loud rumble. An ancient dragon's roar rang out, and a crimson-red fire dragon slithered up. Its pair of old dragon eyes stared at the demonic armor on the high platform, and a hint of wariness flashed in its eyes. It opened its mouth abruptly, and a mouthful of divine flames gushed out. The terrifying voice let out a series of extremely painful and venomous roars. Right now, outside the seal, a stream of light silently passed through the vision of the many powerful human experts guarding outside the huge mountain and appeared outside the underground palace at the foot of the mountain. There were many extraordinarily powerful human experts, and in some of the palaces, there was no lack of powerful guardians who were at the 7th or 8th heaven of the divine level. However, this stream of light flew past right under their noses. Even so, these Tier 7 and 8 divine level experts were unable to see this figure flying past. This is it. He stood at the foot of the mountain. His gaze seemed to pass through the underground palace and landed on Chi-Yu, who was being refined by the fire dragon's divine fire. It's you. Chi-Yu, I hope you won't disappoint me. His figure flashed as he entered the depths of the underground palace. The powerful fire dragon that was absorbing the divine fire of the dragon pearl to refine the Chi-Yu demonic chi seemed to have sensed something and looked back. This was an old dragon at the 9th tier of the divine level. However, the old dragon lost its life in an instant. A look of disbelief flashed in the dragon's eyes. The bloody light wrapped around a huge dragon head and soared into the sky. This old dragon died without knowing who killed him. There was only an extremely fine invisible fire blade that cut across space-time and instantly sank into the depths of the underground palace's lava, causing slight bubbles to rise. A red light flashed, and a red-robed figure appeared on the spot. His entire body was encompassed under a layer of flames, and only 2 crimson-red eyes were looking at the demonic armor. The crimson-red eyes flashed slightly, and a short moment later, he put out a hand. A stream of crimson-red light turned into a stream of divine light and swept out toward the demonic armor's surroundings. Sizzle! There seemed to be invisible forces in the void space around the demonic armor that were being forcibly melted by the crimson-red divine light. At this moment, the demonic aura that was being absorbed by the demonic armor had completely gone out of control. Sizzle! Terrifying demonic aura emitted from the demonic armor. A stream of demonic aura outlined, forming a terrifyingly tall and sturdy demonic shadow. The demonic shadow was blurry, and only a pair of eyes could be seen. They shot out an extremely domineering and brutal gaze as they looked at the figure that had escaped. A terrifying voice rang out in the depths of the underground palace. Xianyuan, I Chi-Yu said that I'll be back. One day, I'll settle the score with you. Endless demonic aura swelled up. In the void, the mysterious figure looked at this scene coldly, and a moment later, a faint voice rang out in the underground palace. Chi-Yu, after breaking the seal, is your only goal to fight with Emperor Huang Xianyuan? If that's all you have, I don't mind sending you back. Hearing this voice, Chi-Yu's laughter stopped abruptly. Chi-Yu finally looked at the red-robed figure, and the corners of his mouth curled up in a sinister smile. Tell me your goal. The red-robed figure looked at Chi-Yu with a slightly surprised gaze. This demon ancestor was much more tactful than he had imagined. This caused many of the methods that he had prepared to fail. However, this was good. The red-robed figure likes smart people like him. With your current strength, you're not qualified to negotiate with me. When you've become one with good and evil, and recovered your peak strength, I'll inform someone to look for you. With that, the red-robed figure glanced at Chi-Yu, turned into a stream of fire, and disappeared quietly. Chi-Yu looked at the place where the red-robed figure disappeared with a gloomy gaze. The red-robed figure who had suddenly released him was truly terrifying. Chi-Yu couldn't even catch a trace of his movements. He was confident that even the most powerful of the 26 utmost beings of light and darkness would not be able to do that. This was definitely an elite who had surpassed the realm of supreme rulers. When did such an elite appear in this part of the void? Chi-Yu thought to himself. Not only was his expression not frightened by the other party's strength, He instead felt a hint of excitement that came from the depths of his heart like never before. But this is what makes it interesting. Xian Yuan is nothing, a loser. One day, I'll trample existences like him beneath my feet. Qi Yu's eyes had a hint of peerlessly domineering ruthlessness. Moments later, his gaze swept across the underground palace and landed on the demonic armor. While the human elites were focused on the upheaval in the depths of heaven, he could retrieve his physical body and devour that hindrance of goodwill. His demonic will rippled, and soon tempted one of the human elites who was guarding the underground palace. A wisp of undying demonic will seized the opportunity to possess him, and sent him straight to the Sky Demon world where the Sky Demons were. The Sky Demons were loyal to the demon ancestor. Although Qi Yu's evil will had broken the seal, he still couldn't leave this place, and it would be a good opportunity for the Sky Demon elites to take the demonic armor away. When the time comes, he would follow the goodwill to control the physical body. Just as the mysterious red-robed expert quietly removed Qi Yu's seal, some of the experts behind the scenes who were watching the changes in the depths of heaven looked rather disappointed, and there was also a hint of urgency and anxiety. In the Xian Yuan tomb, Qin Feng frowned as he stared at the depths of heaven. The results of this test were beyond his expectations. The situation was more urgent and grim than he had imagined. Chapter 1743. From the raging face of the God of Glory, countless experts could only see that the God of Glory's strength had been greatly reduced. However, existences like Qin Feng, who had been eyeing the 26 utmost beings for a long time, saw something deeper. The 26 utmost beings were about to patch up their flaws and give birth to their own complete spirituality. A complete spirituality was made up of humanity and divinity. Divinity was the rational side, pure and flawless. Humanity, on the other hand, was colorful. To put it simply, they were about to have the 5 skandhas and 6 desires. This was not good. The 26 utmost beings who did not have the 5 skandhas and 6 desires were strong. However, in the eyes of Qin Feng and other eternal beings, they were just eternal beings that could jump back and forth. However, once the 5 skandhas and 6 desires were born, the heaven and earth's origin source in their bodies could be contaminated and completely refined, branded with the unique brand of those utmost beings. Once they were branded with such a brand, to eternal beings like Qin Feng, it would be a flaw. No matter how they refined it, they would not be able to benefit themselves. Female demon noticed that the black-robed youth beside her had a gloomy look on his face. The God of Glory is known as the strongest utmost being of light among the gods of light. Even if the remaining 12 utmost beings of light are not as strong as the God of Glory, they should also be about to give birth to their own human side. We have to speed up. At this moment, it wasn't just Qin Feng. A portion of the majestic existences who were secretly watching this scene almost simultaneously felt a trace of impatience and anxiety in their hearts. However, Qin Feng and the others were still calm. As for the mysterious and powerful existence who was secretly instigating Divine King Michael to seize the origin source, his heart was about to explode. After painstakingly scheming, the God of Glory had already given birth to his human side and his spirituality was complete. The worst thing was that he seemed to be the one who stood out and was almost naked in front of the many experts behind the scenes. This was very disadvantageous for him. At this moment, whoever was exposed first would be the one who would be passive. Many experts, including Qin Feng, were not in a hurry to take action. They all stopped what they were doing and waited for the results of the test. While the God of Light was severely injured, the huge commotion caused by the God of Light and the God of Darkness in the heavenly hall were able to sense this terrifying change. Several of the gods of light and the gods of darkness were awakened from their deep slumber. A few pairs of emotionless and cold eyes stared across the vast nirvana ocean at both sides of the battle. However, The numerous awakened utmost beings of both factions were merely watching this scene with cold gazes. None of them did anything at all. The God of Light had attacked several times, but he had not been able to do anything to Michael. Soon after, for some unknown reason, he stopped attacking and just looked at Michael with a cold smile. The God of Light stopped what he was doing, and all the other cultivators were rather puzzled. This almighty hegemon, who had been born with humanity, was able to tolerate having his quintessence snatched away. It seems, in the Xian Yuan tomb, Qin Feng looked at the two giant suns that were facing each other in the depths of the heavenly hall with a pensive look on his face. His immensely powerful consciousness could vaguely sense that there was an extremely inexplicable atmosphere surging in the depths of the void. Something strange was about to happen. Qin Feng squinted his eyes. His consciousness quickly sensed that a formless energy was extending out from the depths of the void. Its speed was extremely fast, comparable to the flow of time and space. It was formless and formless. Those who were not ultimate hegemons would not be able to sense its traces. Those who were not eternal beings would not be able to see it with their consciousness. Under the formless energy, the smug Michael's expression froze. Immediately after, a horrifying look appeared at the corner of his eyes. His eyes widened in shock. The divine power of fire origin that was surging all over Michael's body froze. The next moment it was swept by the formless energy and turned into ashes. The sight of the godly body crumbling inch by inch, turning into ashes and fusing into the void was extremely horrifying. No. Only an extremely shrill cry of unwillingness and fear remained on the spot, faintly shaking the void. Rumble! The void trembled. In the depths of the heavens, the void laws within billions of miles collapsed. It was a horrifying sight. This was the phenomenon of an ultimate being falling. At this moment, countless experts looked at this scene in shock. Just a moment ago, Michael, who had stolen half of the God of Light's origin to break through the bottleneck of the God King, had died silently and mysteriously. Only the ultimate beings of the two camps looked at this scene coldly. It was only natural. Balanced rules. At this moment, in many corners of the world, several existences were chewing on this term. Their eyes flashed with a strange look. What are the balanced rules? In the Xian Yuan tomb, Nuba heard Qin Feng spit out these 4 words clearly. She frowned and looked at Qin Feng in confusion. Have you heard that the dark demonic world once gave birth to the 14th Dark Master? Qin Feng turned his face and asked Nuba. Of course I have. Nuba raised her eyebrows. As the daughter of Emperor Huang Xianyuan, of course she had heard of this legend. Legend had it that after the Dark Camp gave birth to 13 powerful wills, there was actually a 14th powerful consciousness. There were a total of 14 Dark Masters to fight against the 13 Light Masters. It was said that the 14th Dark Master was far stronger than the 26 original Dark Masters of the 2 opposing camps. He was known as the King of Gods. However, legend had it that when the 14th consciousness was half-born, due to the influence of the balanced rules in the chaos, the 14th Dark Master died just as he was born. Only his remnant soul was left behind and disappeared. Immediately, Nuba came to a realization. Her beautiful eyes widened. You mean to say that whether it is the Heaven Camp or the Dark Camp, the 2 camps have reached a special balance. The chaos no longer allows the 2 camps to give birth to new ultimate beings to avoid breaking the balance. To a certain extent, what you said is close to the truth. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a strange look. He nodded slightly. Rumble. In the void, after Michael died, the formless balanced rules did not stop there. Instead, it followed the karmic link that had not disappeared on Michael's body. It blasted into the depths of the void. Bang! In the depths of the void, there seemed to be a dull roar like thunder. The balanced rules, damn it! Vaguely, there was a trace of an extremely angry roar. It was counterattacked by the balanced rules of the multiverse. At this moment, in various corners of the world, the faces of several mysterious existences instantly became extremely solemn. "He's injured," or Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a heavy look. This last guess was the one that Qin Feng was most unwilling to mention. He could clearly see that the one pulling the strings in the dark was also an eternal sovereign. Although he might not be as strong as him, he was still a genuine eternal sovereign. If this eternal being died, then he might not be able to withstand the counterattack of the balanced rules. Qin Feng recalled the feeling of the eternal rules sweeping over just now. It felt like a landslide and a tsunami. The unparalleled light was really terrifying to the extreme. Even now, Qin Feng still did not dare to believe that a single rule of heaven and earth could reach such a terrifying level. It could easily injure and kill an eternal being. This was simply unbelievable. Chapter 1744. At this moment, Nu Ba, who was beside Qin Feng, was immersed in another emotion. She stopped talking and looked at Qin Feng with a complicated expression. Under the balanced law, doesn't this mean that the immemorial world can no longer give birth to a new sovereign? The beautiful ancestor zombie's emotions carried a trace of despair. The emotions coming from the side caused Qin Feng to wake up from his thoughts. He glanced at the maid of the zombie ancestor beside him. Qin Feng smiled faintly. That's not the case. The multiverse void focuses on balance. The balanced law absorbs billions of laws of heaven and earth, and its power is unprecedentedly strong. However, the two ends of the balanced law are the two sides of the nirvana ocean, the heaven space and the devil space. In other words, the heaven space and the devil space cannot be unbalanced. The immemorial world is actually located between the heaven space and the devil space. Therefore, it won't affect the birth of a new sovereign. Nu Ba's expression of despair relaxed. This was truly great news. There were some things that Qin Feng didn't say. In theory, the heaven space and the devil space could also give birth to a new sovereign. However, due to the balanced law, the birth of a new sovereign should occur at the same time and not one side alone. Qin Feng didn't have the heart to care about this. Qin Feng noticed something else. From Michael's usurpation of the origin, he saw another very serious problem. The multiverse void focused on the balanced law. If the heaven space or the devil space's sovereign were killed, would the balanced law retaliate? This was a huge problem. Qin Feng was fine. For example, the delicious food was right in front of him, but outside of the food, there were many dangerous and powerful guardians. However, this didn't pose a problem for Qin Feng. All in all, after this test, Qin Feng already had an idea in his heart. It wasn't just Qin Feng. At this moment, the mysterious existences hidden in the corners of the multiverse void had more or less seen a part of the multiverse void's reality. Qin Feng looked at the depths of the Xian Yuan tomb. Since someone had already taken the initiative to test it, perhaps resurrecting Emperor Huang's Xian Yuan did not mean much anymore. His initial plan was to use his father, the Yellow Emperor Xian Yuan, to kill an utmost being to test the reaction of the multiverse void. Now that someone had helped him to this step, there was naturally no point in resurrecting Emperor Huang's Xian Yuan. However, Qin Feng still decided to revive Emperor Huang's Xian Yuan. This could be used as a backup plan. Qin Feng had always been prepared. In the depths of heaven, with the sudden fall of Michael, the rebellion caused by him quickly came to an end. With the temporary awakening of several light supremes, the situation was brought under control. Moreover, very soon, the lucky person who replaced the first radiant God King was born. The first angel, the angel of wisdom Doris, was brought back to the demon realm. The dark monarch of the third demon realm, the Nine Serenities Emperor, was favored by several supreme beings of light and became the lucky one. When the divine throne was raised high, several beams of light divine power enveloped her from the depths of the heavenly hall. Under the praises and praise of billions of holy angels, Doris broke through to the blazing angel god-king realm. In heaven, as the 13 light monarchs were reunited, the chaos that was caused was temporarily calmed down. As for the demon realm, with the death of a dark monarch, it fell into a rare chaos. According to the rules of the demon realm, after one of the dark monarchs died, the great demon god would be able to completely occupy the territory of this dark monarch. He would have the right to hold a monarch ceremony on this dark monarch's land. As long as the 13 supreme beings of darkness in the depths of the demon realm could respond, they would be able to inherit the position of dark monarch. In the demon realm, several ancient demon gods who were said to be second only to the dark monarchs appeared, including the king of the fallen, Lucifer, who had fallen from the heavenly hall. Xuanyuan's tomb. Qin Feng's gaze landed on Emperor Huang Xianyuan in the middle. In his eyes, Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's physical body was extremely powerful, and there was still an extremely powerful aura left behind. This Xianyuan sovereign clearly still had a remnant soul in this world, and had not completely fallen. However, he could not hold on for long. He could only be considered to be at death's door. After a moment of silence, Qin Feng waved his sleeve and raised a hand. With a flick of his finger, a golden light hit Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's divine body. Bang! An invisible light figure was instantly blasted out of Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's body. He was dressed in a dragon robe and was surrounded by imperial dragon qi. This was a light figure that looked exactly the same as Emperor Huang Xianyuan. He had an aura of looking down on the world and swallowing the 8 desolate. His eyes moved and instantly landed on Qin Feng and Nu Ba. Father! Seeing this figure, Nu Ba's beautiful eyes were filled with sparkling surprise. Ba, your zombie body is under control? The dignified emperor's gaze landed on Nu Ba, and the surprise in his eyes could not be concealed. Thanks to young Master Qin's help, I've finally broken free from my chaotic state and completely woke up. At the mention of Qin Feng, the excitement in Nu Ba's beautiful eyes faded slightly. Father, you're not dead? Nu Ba looked at Emperor Huang Xianyuan with some hope. Qin Feng said, That's enough, this is just the remnant soul of your father. Before he died, he was attacked by the incarnations of the supreme ruler summoned by the gods of darkness and light. How could he not die? It's a blessing that his remnant soul is preserved. Hearing that, Nu Ba's expression changed and she looked at Emperor Huang Xianyuan. Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's remnant soul looked at Qin Feng in surprise. Sir, you have sharp eyes. This is indeed just a remnant soul of mine. Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's gaze landed on Qin Feng and his heart trembled slightly. At this moment, Qin Feng had restrained his aura and was like an ordinary person. However, in front of Emperor Huang Xianyuan, this feeling was much more terrifying than facing the 26 supreme beings. He had never seen such a strange existence. His expression was a little serious. This young master is... He looked at the two of them and his gaze landed on Nu Ba with a questioning look. Nu Ba said, Father, this young master is here to revive you. Revive? Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's remnant soul was slightly stunned. The floating remnant soul obviously fluctuated violently with the emotions in his heart. Your Majesty, I'm here to make a deal with you. Qin Feng glanced at Nu Ba. He went straight to the point and stated his purpose for coming. I'll revive you. You have to promise me one thing. May I know what you need me to do? After a moment of mental turmoil, Emperor Huang Xianyuan quickly regained his composure and looked at Qin Feng with a serious expression. He did not doubt whether Qin Feng had the ability to revive him. What he was curious about was what an existence like Qin Feng needed to revive him for. However, he still said, As long as it doesn't harm the interests of the human race or make me do something that goes against my heart, I can promise you anything. Qin Feng smiled. Don't worry, this has nothing to do with the human race. I won't make you go against your heart. Emperor Huang Xianyuan laughed heartily. In that case, I can agree to your conditions. Chapter 1745. Emperor Huang Xianyuan was severely injured and his divine soul was damaged. Before his body became stiff, Xianyuan had used many methods, including using a part of his luck and even the origin of heaven and earth. However, he still could not heal the injuries on his divine soul. He could only struggle at death's door in the underground palace. Qin Feng could heal him, and as long as he agreed to a condition that did not harm the interests of the human race and did not go against his conscience, Xianyuan would not reject it. Qin Feng was quite happy with Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's straightforwardness. To Qin Feng, reviving Emperor Huang Xianyuan was a piece of cake. Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's body still contained a strong vitality. Most importantly, his divine soul was damaged. To others, it was impossible to repair the divine soul, but to Qin Feng, it was a piece of cake. With the operation of creation, a portion of the spiritual energy was directly converted into the triple light sacred water, the tear of the Emperor of the Underworld, and the triple light sacred water. These were spiritual waters that could repair souls. Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's divine soul was slowly recovering under Qin Feng's mediating creation Ubijin. It was as if he was soaking in a hot spring. After a while, Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's remnant soul was completely repaired. His 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls were complete and turned into a ray of golden light that was sent into his body by Qin Feng. Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's originally stiff body of flesh and blood had a hint of nimbleness and roundness. Qin Feng slowly retracted the divine light. However, Emperor Huang Xianyuan still did not seem to do anything. Nu Ba was a little anxious. "Young master, my father," Qin Feng turned his head and said, "Don't worry, he needs a few days to get used to his body. When his divine soul and body merge again, he will be completely revived. All right, you stay here and accompany him. I'll look for them when I need them." After probing the strength of the multidimensional void, Qin Feng's mind had already flown to the space of heaven and the space of the demon world. He appeared in the sky above the North Sea. A figure looked above the void. Separated by the endless nirvana ocean, the space of heaven and the space of the demon world were in an eternal confrontation. Now, 7 of the 9 manifestations in his body had been perfected. As long as the last 2 manifestations were perfected, he might have the chance to become an eternal true saint and have an indestructible body. How could he not be excited? As long as he could kill and refine 2 utmost beings of the multiple realms, he would be more or less done. In the space of heaven and the space of the demon world, there were a total of 26 multidimensional supremes. Oh, there were also the 4 sacred beasts. There were 30 of them. It seemed like a huge number. In truth, however, many of the multiverse supremes had already developed their own personalities. Someone like the Lord of Glory, who had already given birth to his own personality, would be useless even if he were to kill and refine him. It would only contaminate his own foundation of eternity and create flaws. Apart from the supremes of the light supremes, who was expose a body. However, Qin Feng's there, such as the 4 sacred bias, a example. Among the manifestations that Qin Feng possessed, the manifestation of creation was all-encompassing. The 4 precepts of heaven and earth, water, wind, and fire, overlapped with the manifestation of creation to a certain extent. Such repetitive manifestations were not of much use to Qin Feng. Although he could gather 9 manifestations, it would make him much weaker than other beings of the same level. There was also the Lord of Purgatory in the space of the demon world. Some of the functions of the Lord of Purgatory overlapped with Qin Feng's manifestation of death. There was also the Lord of Souls. The power of the soul overlapped with the manifestation of death to a certain extent. It could even be said that death was a variant of the soul. Among the few remaining supremes, the precepts of heaven and earth that Qin Feng favored were order, destruction, judgment, war, time, and massacre. As for existences like the Lord of Conspiracy and the Lord of Redemption, Qin Feng did not care about them. What Qin Feng desired the most was time and destruction. Time and destruction were two of the most powerful origins in heaven and earth. Massacre, war, and judgment might seem powerful, but in the eyes of a true expert, they should belong to the precepts of heaven and earth. Standing above the void, Qin Feng's eyes flickered slightly. This was especially so for the law of time. Qin Feng had already grasped the law of space at the grand perfection boundary. Time and space had never been separated. If he could grasp the law of space, to Qin Feng, with the combination of time and space, his combat prowess would undoubtedly become extremely powerful. However, according to the rumors, several of the 26 Supremes had already fallen at the beginning of the world before the 4 Supremes appeared and before the balanced precepts were established. They died at the hands of some ancient beings who coveted the position of the god. Among them were the Lord of Time, Lord of Redemption, Lord of Massacre, and Lord of War. However, these were just rumors. No one knew the truth, including Qin Feng. Those Supremes had merged with the Great Tao. Although their combat strength was not strong compared to eternal beings, merging with the precepts of heaven and earth was mysterious. After pondering for a while, Qin Feng rushed toward the space of the demon world. The void was vast. Billions of voids appeared extremely small in front of Qin Feng's traveling light. The landscape of the multidimensional void was very unique. Just like in the legends, the center was the boundless Nirvana ocean. The space of heaven and the space of the demon world faced each other across the Nirvana ocean. The Nirvana ocean was filled with chaos and was extremely dangerous. Even the Supremes couldn't cross it and could only go around it. Below the space of heaven and the space of the demon world was the immemorial continent. The immemorial continent was vast and boundless. Half a day later, Qin Feng saw the location of the demon world. The Nirvana ocean was vast and boundless. The chaos at the edge fell into the demon world. The demon world was like a dark and boundless abyss. It was rumored that the demon world was born from the dark abyss. It and the dark abyss were interconnected. Rumble! The terrifying chaos fell like a waterfall or a mountain flood. The majestic scene was shocking. Even a god-king would tremble from the depths of his soul when facing such a mighty force. Qin Feng stood outside the Nirvana ocean. Looking at the Nirvana ocean, the eternal soul in his body felt a sense of intimacy from the depths of his origin. It was as if he could mobilize the boundless energy of the Nirvana ocean at any time. Qin Feng's expression was a little strange. He knew that this wasn't an illusion. With the precepts of primal chaos, he had an extremely high degree of control over the energy of primal chaos. Looking in the direction of the Nirvana ocean, Qin Feng turned into a ray of divine light. He entered a deep and boundless abyss that was as dark as the mouth of a terrifying beast. Demon World, 7th Demon World. This was the territory of the 7th Dark Sovereign under the Destruction Lord. The 7th Demon World was also known as the Destruction Demon World. There was an indescribably huge destruction abyss here. The abyss was filled with an endless aura of destruction and chaos. Even some of the great demon gods that were born in the Destruction Demon World didn't dare to enter the depths of the Destruction Demon World. Chapter 1746. Qin Feng's figure appeared in the abyss of destruction. He was surrounded by a terrifying and violent aura. Demonic qi filled the sky. His current identity was that of a chaos devil born in the abyss of destruction. Qin Feng wielded the primal chaos supreme unity law and transformed into this kind of devil clan. His demon aura surged as he stood in the chaos storm of destruction like a terrifying and supreme ruler. Sensing this terrifying aura from afar, some demons born in the depths of the abyss of destruction wisely chose to take a detour. Qin Feng frowned slightly as he looked at the vast and boundless abyss of destruction. It was rumored that the Lord of Destruction of the 13 Overlords of Darkness was sleeping somewhere in the Abyss of Destruction. However, the Abyss of Destruction was so vast and there was a passage leading to the dark abyss in its depth. Looking for the Lord of Destruction here was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Qin Feng's expression was somewhat gloomy. He was certain that while he was on the move, the other masterminds hiding in the darkness were probably also looking for the traces of the 26 Supreme Sovereigns. If this continued, other beings would probably beat them to it. Moreover, as time passed, it was inevitable that other eternal sovereigns would notice the existence of this multiverse. Rumble. At this moment, Qin Feng's expression changed as an earth-shattering sound rang in his ears. Bang! In the third demon realm, in the depths of the 9 underworlds, there was the sound of heaven and earth shattering. At the same time, a furious and terrifying roar rang out from the depths of the 9 underworlds, shocking the entire demon realm. Someone is attacking by force! Hearing this, Qin Feng was first stunned, then his expression darkened. In the sky above the 9 underworlds, there was a being wrapped in silver-white light. He held a huge sword in his hand and slashed at the 9 underworlds. The entire 9 underworlds was torn apart, and a stream of light tried to rush out. It was the Soul King. He was instantly enveloped by the powerful being in the silver-white light. Like a bird that had crashed into a huge net, he fell into the hands of the powerful being in the depths of the silver-white light. The King of Souls was not dead. It had merely been sealed. This had greatly avoided the backlash of the balanced rules of order. Qin Feng, who was in the Abyss of Destruction, seemed to have noticed the gaze of the 7th demon world and looked straight at him with an extremely cold and overbearing gaze. When it landed on Qin Feng's body, the pair of silver-white eyes were slightly startled. Soon after, a trace of killing intent flashed past as it locked onto Qin Feng. Qin Feng's face was expressionless as he sensed the gaze. Their gazes met, separated by millions and millions of miles. Rumble. The formless collision caused countless voids to collapse and rupture, unable to withstand the confrontation between the two experts. A moment later, the two of them shifted their gazes away. This was not a good time to fight. In the multiverse, there were more than just 2 eternal ones. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Even though both of them had a feeling that sooner or later, the two of them would have a fight. Since the silver-armored man had set a precedent, Qin Feng no longer held back. His gaze fell on the Abyss of Destruction, and a gray light flashed in his eyes. The tyrannical Chaos Law responded to his summons and turned into a Chaos Axe in his hand. Holding the Chaos Axe in his hand, Qin Feng swung it down at the Abyss of Destruction. Rumble! Under the axe light that could split heaven and earth, countless demon gods and great demon gods were reduced to ashes. The vast and boundless Abyss of Destruction suddenly collapsed into millions of fragments. If the Abyss of Destruction was a small stream before, it immediately turned into a great river when the axe fell. Chi! Chi! A terrifying stream of light shot out from the Abyss of Destruction and fled desperately into the depths of the Abyss of Destruction. The Lord of Destruction had appeared. Qin Feng was already prepared. A giant hand grabbed at the Lord of Destruction out of thin air. Rumble! It was earth-shattering. Just then, a fiery red divine light streaked across the sky and turned into a giant hand that grabbed at the Lord of Destruction. Someone had come to intercept him. It was a red-robed Eternal who was surrounded by flames like a great sun. He was the mysterious Eternal who had set up the trap to release Chiyu. "How dare you come and take my peaches?" Qin Feng raised his eyebrows and a trace of gloomy and cold light flashed in his eyes. The grand mist holy power in his body surged, and a world-shaking power rushed through his body. He formed a seal with one hand. He smashed it at the fiery red divine light above his head. It was as if the entire primal chaos was attacking. However, it was extremely restrained and looked like an ordinary eternal strike. Qin Feng's attack could be said to be extremely vicious and condensed. As expected, the red-robed Eternal did not see through the attack's strength. A cold sneer appeared on his face. He had already condensed more than 4 kinds of manifestations. This kind of attack was not a threat to him at all. Today, not only will I take your prey, I will also take your life. The red-robed Eternal laughed sinisterly. With a twist of his giant hand, the vast amount of grand mist holy power in his body surged and turned into a giant yellow furnace that seemed to be able to swallow heaven and earth. It blasted towards Qin Feng. Bang! As if heaven and earth had exploded, the giant yellow furnace shattered. The sinister smile on the red-robed Eternal's face froze on his face, and a trace of shock appeared in his eyes. The primal chaos attack suddenly engulfed him. Pung! The entire devil world seemed to shake violently, and the red-robed Eternal's body was torn apart. The terrifying power followed some kind of unseverable karma and went straight into the 4 vast laws of heaven and earth that traversed the void. Qin Feng saw the 4 incomparably huge laws of heaven and earth. The laws of flame, the laws of wind, the laws of thunder, and the laws of annihilation. The power he erupted instantly spread into the depths of the 4 laws of heaven and earth. In the depths of the laws of flame, wind, thunder, and annihilation, he found 4 inextinguishable true spirits that were entrusted to the depths of the laws of heaven and earth. The traces of inextinguishable true spirits vaguely resembled the red-robed Eternal's appearance. They were the inextinguishable true spirits that were entrusted to the depths of the laws of heaven and earth. As long as the inextinguishable true spirits were not destroyed, even if an Eternal was reduced to dust, they could still absorb the power of the laws of heaven and earth in an instant and reassemble an inextinguishable grand mist body. The red-robed Eternal in front of him had condensed 4 manifestations, and could entrust his true spirit to the depths of the 4 laws of heaven and earth. In an instant, the 3 traces of inextinguishable true spirits in the depths of the laws of wind, thunder, and annihilation fell. Only the trace of inextinguishable true spirit in the depths of the laws of fire instantly turned into a fiery light and escaped into the depths of the laws of fire. Qin Feng's terrifying power continued to spread, shattering countless laws of fire. However, he still could not catch up to this trace of inextinguishable true spirit. As his power weakened, this trace of inextinguishable true spirit escaped. To think that a trace of inextinguishable true spirit had escaped. Qin Feng. A sinister look flashed across his eyes. Evil must be eradicated. But soon after, the sinister look disappeared. After losing the other 3 traces of true spirits, this red-robed Eternal dropped to the utmost being level. His cultivation base was greatly damaged, and it would be extremely difficult for him to recover in the future. To him, there was no longer any threat. Chapter 1747. The earth-shattering commotion attracted the attention of many experts. They looked toward the abyss of destruction. The silver-armored Eternal, who was close by, was even more shocked. He looked at the abyss of destruction that had been forcefully expanded by more than 10 times. A layer of cold sweat soaked his back. The others were a step too late and did not discover Qin Feng's trace. However, he had seen it clearly earlier. It was hard to imagine that such an unbelievably powerful existence had encountered him. He was not much weaker than the red-robed Eternal. If Qin Feng attacked him, the consequences would be unimaginable. Within the abyss of destruction, Qin Feng's figure had quietly disappeared into the extremely violent chaos storm. He grabbed the Lord of Destruction and sealed him with a palm. Qin Feng's figure flew through the chaos storm at lightning speed. He left the demon realm and flew toward the heaven realm. It was obviously impossible to kill and refine the Lord of Destruction now. The balanced laws were extremely powerful. Qin Feng did not want to go against the balanced laws of this world. Therefore, he still needed a supreme ruler from the heaven realm. Only by killing the supreme rulers of both the heaven realm and the demon realm at the same time could the balanced laws not be disturbed. The Lord of Destruction was turned into a crystal ball by his primordial saint power and stuffed into his sleeve. Fortunately, this Lord of Destruction was still some distance away from giving birth to his own personality. Flying out of the demon realm and into the heaven realm, Qin Feng used a lot of time. The heaven realm and the demon realm were facing each other. They were separated by millions of miles. Qin Feng's flying speed was extremely fast. He used his affinity with the laws of heaven and earth that he had mastered to pass through the omnipresent laws of heaven and earth and enter the heaven realm. This was a high-level method of using the laws of heaven and earth. Ordinary supremes could only use their undying true spirits to pass through the laws of heaven and earth. However, eternal sovereigns could directly merge their physical bodies with the laws of heaven and earth and hide. Of course, he was not an eternal true saint. After a while, Qin Feng felt his half-completed eternal saint body being assimilated by the laws of heaven and earth and out of the laws of heaven and earth. However, he was already in the heaven realm. Clouds surrounded him. The white clouds seemed to have a bright luster. The entire heaven realm looked exceptionally gentle. The heaven realm was similar to the primordial era. It also had a huge continent. It was boundless. The angels were not the only ones who lived there. On the vast and boundless continent, the mountains and rivers were beautiful. It did not have the space of the demon realm, and the continents were crisscrossed with each other. It looked extremely elegant. The species that lived in the mountains were very docile. Many holy beasts lived carefreely on the continent. Perhaps they would follow the law of the jungle, but most of them lived by absorbing the extremely rich, holy light in heaven to survive. It could be seen that whether it was day or night, in the sky above the heavens, the floating islands, the sun, the moon, and the stars would often emit gentle and holy light. It was formed from the pure spiritual energy of the heavens. Some wild beasts devoured it, and it was very easy for them to evolve into spiritual holy beasts, awaken or condense light, flame, and other innate talents. Once these saint beasts evolved, they would be able to automatically absorb the power of light in the heavenly hall, or the power of the sun, moon, and stars to temper their bloodline. It was very peaceful. It was very quiet. On the Midland continent, Qin Feng saw some humanoid races, such as the elf race, some centaur race, and many gentle-natured races. The creatures in the heaven realm had a paranoid pursuit of light, and had an instinctive dislike of darkness. However, although the heaven realm looked peaceful, it was not as beautiful as the rumors said. The creatures also had 5 skandhas and 6 desires. As long as they had the 5 skandhas and 6 desires, they would be driven to produce benefits and battles. In such a vast place, looking for the existence of the light gods, even Qin Feng frowned a little. This was not like the dark gods in the demon realm. Each of them had their own precise territory. The dark gods were more high-profile, and the territory where they slept could be found. If the light gods escaped into the depths of the Sea of Light, it would be troublesome. The Sea of Light and the Dark Abyss were extremely mysterious places born from the multidimensional void. That place nurtured dangerous and unpredictable power. It was the lair of the light and dark gods. Ordinary Eternals would not dare to go in recklessly to capture people. Qin Feng's incomparably huge divine thoughts vaguely swept across the void above the huge light kingdoms. His gaze fell in the direction of the first light godly kingdom. There was no trace of the other light supremes, but the god of light was still in the first light godly kingdom to quell the rebellion. Let's find a guarantee first. With this thought, Qin Feng's figure flashed, and he flew in the direction of the first light godly kingdom. The first light godly kingdom. The first light godly kingdom was located in the east of the heaven realm. It was above a huge holy mountain. Looking from afar, endless heavenly light fell from the sky. The holy mountain was full of holy white poplar trees, and sacred buildings stood tall. This place was also called the Holy Region. The light gods had set up the holy palace here, and established the holy church of light for the pilgrims to come and pay homage to the holy church. At the foot of the holy mountain was an endless plain. The vegetation was lush, and the plan was very smooth. At the foot of the holy mountain, there were small towns where the holy disciples lived. The white buildings were square, one after another, and stretched to the horizon. There were many churches, and every morning at dusk, sacred and loud prayers could be heard. The light of faith gathered on the holy mountain, and it seemed to be covered with a layer of soft brilliance. It was as if a magnificent milky white halo of flames had formed on the peak of the mountain, and it surrounded the huge holy mountain. Looking from afar, the first thing one would see was a strange scene. The brilliance from the dome above fell on the holy mountain, and a huge bright sun appeared on the top of the mountain. Faintly, one could see countless holy angels flying around. It was such a miracle that a large number of holy disciples came from all over the heaven realm around the holy mountain every year, and the holy region grew larger and larger. Very rich power of faith. Not long after, Qin Feng appeared on the green carpet-like plain, and looked at the holy mountain from afar. The rich power of faith surprised even him, an eternal. Part of this majestic power of faith came from the many dimensions of the lower world, as well as the multiverse. The power of faith was also a huge source of energy. Any god king who devoured this power of faith on the holy mountain could possibly improve their cultivation by leaps and bounds. The huge amount of power of faith had the effect of transforming and decaying. The 26 utmost beings were using the power of faith to repair their souls, condense their personalities, and become one with God. Looking at the gushes of power of faith gushing into the Saint Mountain and the scenes within the halls, a thought flashed through Qin Feng's mind. He might have already figured out how to ferret out those hidden utmost beings of the Radiance realm. Chapter 1748. As long as the light gods still needed the power of faith to condense their personalities, following the direction of the power of faith, one would eventually find the light gods hidden behind the threads of faith. However, the God of glory could not be let go. For Qin Feng, he could capture more of these supremes, but not less. He looked above the firmament. In a flash, Qin Feng passed through it. In the deepest part of the firmament, holy islands of light floated. A huge divine territory shrouded the hundreds of millions of void. It was pure white. Exotic flowers and herbs competed with each other. Countless little angels flapped their cicada-like wings, illuminating these flowers and herbs. A portion of the angels mostly passed through the divine territory, which was condensed into the realm of light. In the various palaces, their divine consciousness flew down to the lower realm. In the dimensions, they went through various trials to train themselves. This was the treatment of high-level angels, or a portion of the core angels. As for the rest of the angels, they stayed at the various training grounds or under the spell suppression pagoda to study the secret arts of the angel race and improve their cultivation. Above the void, Qin Feng looked at the huge divine territory. Powerful lords could create divine territories. In the divine territory, the lord was the master. In their territory, they were the masters. That kind of huge authority was enough to suppress any existence below the level of a lord. In this realm, the god-level masters had a portion of the authority of a lord. The supremes were similar to the godly kings, which was the second-step lord. The supremes were similar to the third-step lord. Qin Feng rarely saw powerful godly kings directly expand their divine territories. However, this was not the case in the multidimensional void. Many powerful god-level masters liked to expand their divine territories in the void. There were advantages and disadvantages to doing so. The disadvantage was obvious. When such a huge divine territory was expanded, it was extremely easy to attract the attacks of other enemy masters. However, this disadvantage was compensated for and concealed to a certain extent. Whether it was the God-level masters of heaven or the human race, they all cultivated their divine territories into a single piece. They each did their own thing, but they were in sync with each other. Of course, while the risk was huge, there were also extraordinary benefits to doing so. The divine domain and the laws of heaven and earth existed together. When the divine domain was opened, it was as if the laws of heaven and earth were constantly intertwined. When the divine consciousness spread into the laws of heaven and earth, the speed of cultivation would be much faster than normal. In addition, within the deity realm, there were countless servant races that could live in it, helping the sovereigns unify and deduce the edicts of the world. Qin Feng looked up at the pure white god's domain, which was covered in white light. In the realm of the gods, I am the master. I am the master of my territory. It was rather dangerous for ordinary people, even if they were a level higher, to enter the domain of another overgod. However, to Qin Feng, an eternal sovereign, there was no such fear. A stream of light flashed and penetrated the outer barrier of the Radiant's dominion, abruptly entering the void of the Radiant's dominion. In the first light dominion, in a huge temple, the one sitting on the throne was not Doris, the first wisdom god-king who had just ascended. The godly king of wisdom stood below. At this moment, her eyes were closed. Behind her back were 12 gigantic wings of light. The power of light was abnormally vast. It was holding a book in its hand. It was her natal divine artifact, the Book of Wisdom, that she had condensed after breaking through to the God-King realm. This divine artifact possessed an extremely mysterious power. The Edicts of Wisdom did not specialize in attack, but its supportive abilities were ranked first. Apart from being able to deduce various secrets of the world and the many ultimate techniques of the light race, this Book of Wisdom also possessed a trace of prediction and the ability to deduce the future. At this moment, she was immersed in a deep level of comprehension of the Edicts of Wisdom. In the multiverse void, after breaking through to the God realm, there were two paths to take. One was to unify the heavens, while the other was to choose a second opposite edicts of the world. Finally, one would comprehend one's own edicts and break through to the paramount realm. Legend had it that a edicts of the world was like a great river. There would be many branches that would form many tributaries, and the tributaries would form many streams. Even God realm experts could assimilate, but they could only assimilate the edicts of the world that were as small as streams. However, it was different for God-kings. They could send their indestructible true spirits deeper, upstream, and into the larger tributary edicts of the world. As for the paramount realm, it was different. However, the path of assimilation was more difficult. One had to create a tributary and obtain the recognition of the multiverse void. Finally, one had to find a way to strengthen this tributary. Doris was taking the first path. At this moment, Doris suddenly felt very flustered. The indestructible true spirit that was hidden deep in the Edicts of Wisdom seemed to be trembling violently, as if it had suddenly encountered a higher being above the source. Her state of mind was in turmoil. Amidst the violent fluctuations, the 12 newly grown wings on the surface of her body vibrated. The strong fluctuations of the power of light caused many peaceful little angels in the void to flee in panic. This scene alarmed the many six-winged angels standing on both sides of the temple. They all looked at the new God-King. There was slight astonishment in their eyes. On the throne, there was a man in a white robe. Behind his head, countless rays of light formed a huge wheel of light. The Lord of Glory opened his eyes. It was as if endless light flashed across his eyes. They were cold and silver-white, but soon traces of humanity appeared. He looked at his subordinates, the beautiful newly promoted God-King. "Doris, what's wrong?" The Lord of Glory was quite satisfied with Doris. She had single-handedly brought back the sealed Dark Lord. Whether it was her loyalty or her ability, she was quite outstanding. Most importantly, the Dark Lord brought back made up for the face that heaven had lost and a part of the origin. The injuries that Michael had inflicted on him earlier were almost completely healed with the replenishment of this source energy. If not for Michael's betrayal and obtaining this part of the origin, it was very likely that he would have advanced further. My lord, I feel an extremely strong pressure. It seems to be coming from the depths of the edicts of wisdom, making it difficult for me to breathe. I'm extremely uneasy. I'm afraid that an extremely powerful being has set his eyes on our first divine nation of light. Doris voiced out her guess. As soon as she said this, the peaceful atmosphere in the first divine nation of light suddenly stagnated. A cold chill surged in the hearts of the six-winged angels. The expressions of the six-winged angels changed. The space of the demonic world, the third demonic world, and the fourth demonic world had been penetrated one after another. The Lord of Souls and the Lord of Destruction had been captured at almost the same time. The gods of light in heaven had seen this clearly. How could the gods of light in heaven not be worried? It seems that a powerful being who far surpasses you in terms of the edicts of wisdom has come to heaven. Perhaps he is now close to our first divine nation of light. Light shone on millions of void. On the throne, the Lord of Glory sighed. Chapter 1749. Your Excellency, since you're already here, come out. The God of Light gazed into the depths of the void. As you wish. Above the vast void, a faint voice that seemed to have come from endless time ago sounded. A ray of white light landed in the hall, and a figure seemed to have crossed endless time and space, suddenly appearing above the hall. The moment this figure appeared, Doris, the god of wisdom, felt that the rule of wisdom that she had comprehended in the depths of her soul seemed to have frozen, and she could not mobilize even a trace of her divine power. Immediately, her beautiful eyes looked at Qin Feng in shock. A god-king born from the rule of wisdom? Qin Feng glanced at Doris. When he entered the light dominion, he had noticed this 12-winged blazing angel. The power of the rule of wisdom could not be concealed. However, in front of him, an expert who had perfected the rule of wisdom, this god-king was suppressed rather badly. A dignified god-king of the angels of heaven was unable to resist at all in front of a seemingly human expert. Doris' beautiful face was somewhat pale. This was simply beyond her imagination. Your Excellency, are you a human expert? The god of light looked at Qin Feng with a heavy gaze. He already possessed the 5 essences and 6 desires of his personality, and under the pressure of this expert's aura, he felt that he was incomparably small and insignificant. Human? Qin Feng smiled slightly. To a certain extent you can say so. Then he turned to look at the god of light. What, you previously enslaved the human race? Did you not think that one day you would be trampled underfoot by a race? As soon as this was said, the atmosphere in the hall became somewhat chilly, and many experts of the angels looked somewhat unnatural. For many years, the angels had been high and mighty, and the human race was just a slave race that provided the angels with faith. If the angels became slaves to the human race one day, they would not be able to bear it even if they died. Qin Feng waved his hand when he saw the expressions of the experts of the angel race changing. That's enough. Whether or not the angels become slaves to the human race depends on your attitude, God of Light. Qin Feng looked at the God of Light calmly. There was a hint of majesty in his eyes that was above the heavens and the earth. Tell me where the other 12 supreme gods of light are sleeping, and I can keep you as a follower god. As expected, the target of you experts is us, the ancient supremes who were born since the creation of the world. A look of understanding flashed across the god of light's face. His expression was somewhat self-deprecating. All of these utmost beings were usually high and mighty, looking down on all living beings as mere ants. To think that there would come a day where they would become prey in the eyes of others. On the side, many angel powerhouses heard this and instinctively felt a trace of anger in their hearts. However, when he saw the slightly bitter expression on the God of Light's face, he felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over his head, and he instantly sobered up. Qin Feng glanced at the experts of the angel race, and a cold sneer flashed in his eyes. The angels viewed the ancient races as ants, but in his eyes, these angels were nothing more than ants. Then, what's your answer? Qin Feng's expression was still indifferent as he looked at the God of Light. If the God of Light did not know what was good for him, he could only capture this supreme as a guarantee. I'll tell you where they are. After a moment of silence, the God of Light spoke. There was some embarrassment and guilt in his eyes. Perhaps, if my personality had not been born, my choice would have been different. The God of Light mocked himself in his heart, but he really did not want to fall in the hands of this existence before him. The right choice. Qin Feng nodded. After witnessing the God of Light betraying the other 12 supreme gods, many powerful angel powerhouses found it hard to believe their eyes. They felt as if their worldview had collapsed. Their beliefs had collapsed. Doris, the #1 godly king of wisdom, also found it hard to believe what she had just seen. The God of Light's gaze swept across the experts of the angel race. Looking at the expressions on their faces, he felt a little ashamed and angry. His darkest side had been seen by these angels. If word of this got out, the God of Light's reputation would be ruined. This made the corners of his eyes turn murderous. Qin Feng saw this and laughed coldly in his heart. He did not care about the lives of these experts of the angel race. Qin Feng's eyes flashed as he looked at the God of Light and said, "Among the 13 supreme gods of light, other than you, are there any other existences who have already formed their personalities?" Hearing this, the God of Light retracted his murderous intent. He walked down from his throne and bowed slightly. "Your Majesty, among the 13 supreme gods, I am the strongest. Hence, according to what I know, I'm afraid that I'm the only one who has formed my personality. The others will need some time." At this moment, the God of Light was acting as Qin Feng's follower. Not only had he changed the way he addressed him, but his tone had also become more humble. However, when it came to strength, he could not help but feel a little proud. Qin Feng noticed the God of Light's expression but did not care. He was rather happy to hear that the other 12 supreme gods had not formed their personalities. After a slight pause, he spoke again. "Rumor has it that among the 13 supreme gods of light, there is a master of time. Do you know where he is sleeping?" The God of Light looked at Qin Feng with a slightly surprised expression and frowned slightly. "Your Majesty, among the 13 supreme gods of the Light Camp, there is indeed a master of time. However, as the rumors say, he has already fallen in the river of time." "Has he really fallen?" Qin Feng couldn't hide the disappointment on his face. He had been coveting the time rules for a long time. The God of Light observed his expression, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. "Your Majesty, are you interested in the time rules? Do you have a way?" Qin Feng looked at the God of Light. The God of Light looked at Qin Feng with bright eyes. "If your Majesty is interested in the time rules, I have a way to fulfill your Majesty's wish." Seeing Qin Feng looking at him, the God of Light smiled and said, "Your Majesty, after the fall of the Master of Time, the time rules returned to the River of Time. However, it was not that no one was interested in the time rules. After the fall of the Master of Time, there was a person who almost inherited the power of the time rules and broke through. Who is he?" Qin Feng's expression changed slightly. He already had some guesses in his heart. The God of Light said word by word, "The 14th Supreme God of Darkness." As expected, Qin Feng thought to himself. His eyes flashed. Rumor has it that the 14th Supreme God of Darkness was the King of Gods after the 26 Supreme Gods. He was born to inherit two great rules of heaven and earth, and was far stronger than any of the 26 supreme gods of the two camps. After saying that, the God of Light spoke again. The 14th supreme god of darkness was sealed by the rules of balance during his godly ascension. However, the 26 supreme gods know the whereabouts of this god. Chapter 1750. Oh! Qin Feng's eyes lit up. This was truly a case of a village at the end of a mountain and a river with no way out, a light at the end of the tunnel. Looking at the God of Light's expression, Qin Feng immediately said, "If you can help me get the time rule, I can give you the path to the eternal soul." "Thank you, young master." The God of Light was overjoyed. There was no path to the eternal soul in the multidimensional void. Everything depended on the 26 Supreme's own speculations. However, such speculations, without the help of a personality, were like machines. They would only fall into an endless loop and could not find a creative path. At this moment, the guilt in the God of Light's heart had completely dissipated. Compared to the eternal road, betraying the gods of light and darkness was nothing. Meeting Qin Feng's gaze, he slightly organized the words in his heart and said, "Back then, the King of Gods suffered a backlash from the balanced rules and was forcefully sealed. We saw it with our own eyes. He was sealed in the deepest part of the demonic world, the 9 underworlds' demonic world. His divine body and immortal demonic soul merged with the 9 underworlds' demonic world." The third demonic world? Qin Feng raised his eyebrows, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. With that said, he and the other eternal sovereigns brushed past the 14th utmost darkness overlord. After a moment of silence, Qin Feng stretched out a hand. A golden light appeared on his palm and turned into a golden light talisman. The Eternal God Talisman. This was another use of the Eternal God Talisman. With the Eternal God Talisman, one would be protected by the Eternal God. And those who entered the Eternal God Talisman would be controlled by the Eternal God. Qin Feng could destroy the immortal true spirit of those who were controlled by the Eternal God Talisman. The Eternal God Talisman changed and turned into a shining golden talisman pill. "Swallow it. If you have never betrayed me, it will never act up. If one day you betray me, it will kill you." The golden talisman pill in Qin Feng's hand floated in front of the God of Light. His expression was indifferent. It was obvious that the God of Light was a ruthless person. For the sake of his own interests, he was willing to do anything. It was necessary to give him a juju ball to raise his level. Hearing this, the God of Light's expression changed slightly. Looking at the talisman golden elixir in front of him, a glint of displeasure flashed in his eyes. He glanced at Qin Feng, gritted his teeth, grabbed the talisman's gold core and swallowed it. On the side, many angel race powerhouses watched this scene with numb expressions. Seeing this scene, Qin Feng said with a smile, "Very well. I've always been fair in my rewards and punishments. If I can find the 14th Supreme Dark Being in the 9 underworlds, I'll definitely reward you." As soon as he finished speaking, Qin Feng suddenly turned around and disappeared into the depths of the devil world. Looking in the direction that Qin Feng had left, the God of Light's eyes darkened, and a trace of hatred appeared. "My lord, what do we do now?" Doris finally spoke. She looked at the God of Light. "All of you, follow me into the Sea of Light. It's no longer safe here. Those powerful existences might come and cause trouble for us at any time." The God of Light's expression was cold, and a trace of resentment flashed in his eyes. Since when did the most supreme beings in the multiverse become existences that could be ordered around? The divine territory around him spread out, including the divine territory of light. In an instant, countless fluctuations appeared on the spot, and the huge divine territory disappeared. A moment later, several figures came to the place where the first divine kingdom of light was located. Obviously, a group of eternal beings also thought of the God of Light as the best candidate to lead the way. However, they were a step too late. After being taught a lesson by Qin Feng, the God of Light had already been alerted and fled into the Sea of Light. The Sea of Light was incomparably huge. It was the most terrifying and mysterious place in the multiverse. Many eternal beings could only look at it and sigh, not daring to enter rashly. Rumble! In their anger, the auras of several eternal beings swept across millions of miles. Countless angels and the heavenly void became the punching bags for these eternal beings. The 9 underworlds. This was an incomparably pitch-black land. Darkness and coldness often took care of this incomparably vast land. The demonic realm of the 9 serenities was desolate. Bare black mines were exposed, and the demons living here were unusually difficult. In the depths of the demonic realm of the 9 serenities, there was a 9 serenities river, which was how the demonic realm of the 9 serenities got its name. The 9 serenities river was connected to a huge lake of death, and several huge demonic realms were bordered by the lake of death. The demonic realm of the 9 serenities was desolate, but there was no lack of living creatures. Some powerful demons were very adapted to this dark and cold environment, and they evolved into a variety of species in it. There were many demon gods and great demon gods born among the demons. The demons born in such a harsh environment were extremely lethal. However, during this period, the demonic realm of the 9 serenities had suffered many casualties. First, the dark monarch of the demonic realm of the 9 serenities, the 9 serenities emperor, had fallen. The demonic emperor of the 9 serenities was the only blood moon in the demonic realm of the 9 serenities. Without the essence of the blood moon, many demons became very uncomfortable. In the cruel system of racial elimination, some of them were almost wiped out. The greatest difficulty came from the tyrannical blow of the silver-armored eternal being. The entire demonic realm of the 9 serenities was almost pierced through. The Soul King hiding in the depths of the demonic realm of the 9 serenities was forcibly dragged out like a bug in the heart of a tree. This tyrannical method caused the deaths of many creatures in the demonic realm of the 9 serenities. Not long after, Qin Feng appeared on the incomparably desolate land of the demonic realm of the 9 serenities. Qin Feng looked around. The demonic realm of the 9 serenities was extremely dim, and the visibility was extremely low. It was like a plain under the winter night. The cold wind whistled, making people shiver. In the wasteland, the demonic qi had become very sparse. Only a few tenacious demonic beasts wandered around the wasteland hungrily, looking for prey. Qin Feng spread out his vast divine consciousness and integrated it into every inch of the demonic realm of the 9 serenities. As he gradually approached the core of the demonic realm of the 9 serenities, Qin Feng felt a noble and indifferent will that was extremely close to the laws of heaven and earth. They've hidden so deeply. The Supremes born in the multiverse void are all indifferent to the laws of heaven and earth. If not careful, it's really difficult to find their traces. Qin Feng thought in his heart. There was some understanding in his eyes. It was no wonder that the few eternal beings who passed by the demonic realm of the 9 serenities did not discover this 14th Supreme of Darkness that was sealed in the deepest part of the demonic realm of the 9 serenities. However, even though Qin Feng had already discovered the existence of the 14th Supreme of Darkness, he frowned. The 14th Supreme of Darkness was in a somewhat special state. Compared to the other Supreme of Darkness, it was like a green fruit. Most importantly, this green fruit was half dead. In such a state, it was not suitable to directly refine it. Otherwise, the result would only be a half-complete law of time. Chapter 1751. The first thing Qin Feng had to do was to break the seal on the 14th Supreme of the demonic world and revive him. There were several ways to break the seal. The most common way was to hold a sacrifice and use the blood of countless demon gods and great demon gods to strengthen his power and break free from the seal. The second way was to use a supreme external force to melt the seal on the 14th supreme of the demonic world. Experts who were not strong enough would choose the first way. Qin Feng chose the second way. His divine will spread to every corner of the demonic world of the 9 underworld. His majestic divine will directly separated the 14th overlord of darkness from the natural order of the world, helping him block the demonic world of the 9 underworlds, and even the space of the demonic world, as well as the suppression of the multiverse. Boom! In an instant, the 14th supreme of the demonic world gathered and took the opportunity to escape from the place of suppression. Rumble! The 14th supreme of the demonic world escaped from the seal. Boundless light of transcendence filled the entire space of the demonic world as a terrifying aura emerged. In the multiverse, countless experts instantly noticed this scene. Their gazes pierced through the endless void and fell on the depths of the demonic world. Above the demonic world, an illusory figure blocked everyone's gaze. It's him! Hidden in the multiverse, many Eternals recognized the figure who destroyed the red-robed Eternals with a single blow. What was he doing in the demonic world? Several extraordinary figures looked at this scene with flickering eyes, but there was already a hint of speculation in their eyes. What an extremely powerful existence! On the other hand, including the revived Xian Yuan, Qi Yu, and many other god-level and supreme experts, their eyes were filled with disbelief and yearning. They were either in awe or shock. Soon, the 14th supreme of the demonic world who was released. His silver-gray eyes pierced through time and space and fell on Qin Feng, who was above the demonic world. He frowned. Silver light flashed on his body, and he instinctively chose to escape. He was proficient in the laws of time and slaughter. He cut through time and space and flew toward the river of time at an extremely fast speed. The river of time flowed in the multiverse, and once it entered, not even Qin Feng would be able to catch it. Only Eternals who had grasped the temporal rule would have the chance to enter the river of time and catch the big fish that had slipped away. Qin Feng looked at this scene coldly. Although this future 14th supreme darkness wasn't afraid, he had a natural instinct to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. He and this utmost being of darkness were like small fish meeting a big fish, instinctively fleeing in all directions. But Qin Feng didn't have time to play cat and mouse with him. Qin Feng opened his hand, and an invisible force enveloped the escaping silver-gray divine light. It was as if time had reversed, and the escaping silver-gray divine light suddenly reappeared on the spot. The power of the space precepts. Seeing this scene from afar, the expressions of several eternal sovereigns changed slightly. The law of space was not the strongest offensive power, but it was definitely the most useful law of heaven and earth. This law of heaven and earth had the ability to fuse with other laws of heaven and earth. Of course, its greatest advantage was its advantage in speed, which was enough to rank in the top 3 among the countless laws of heaven and earth. Once this law of heaven and earth was mastered, the 14th supreme darkness would definitely not be able to escape. Qin Feng casually grabbed this utmost being of darkness back, looked at him and thought to himself, "It seems that I have to completely destroy this instinct of his to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages, otherwise it will be difficult to continue the plan." Rescuing this 14th supreme darkness was only the first step. The second step was to let him truly complete the breakthrough to the supreme level. But learning from the unlucky guy in heaven who was punished by the balance precepts, Qin Feng didn't directly mature him. He had to remove himself. A divine light blasted out from Qin Feng's palm, and a golden thunderbolt blasted into the 10th supreme darkness's brain. Boom! A part of this future supreme darkness's memory instantly disintegrated like ice, and fine sand was lost. In an instant, his expression became extremely pure. His memory was completely erased. but his eyes grew brighter with a fanatical persistence. It was an incomparably strong persistence that had been hidden in the heart of this future supreme darkness ever since he was sealed to ascend to the position of supreme. Almost without hesitation, he did so. Roar! A furious roar filled the multiverse. The two rhombus-shaped crystals on the forehead of the 14th god King of Darkness burst out in dazzling radiance, with veins of substantial dark divine power spreading and quaking the multiverse. Those two diamond-shaped crystals were divine sparks. Deshang's understanding of the laws of heaven and earth condensed into crystals. But the 14th god King was born with those two crystals. It's begun. At the sight, the many god-tier champions in the multiverse watched closely. In the depths of the distant heart of the multiverse, endless worldly precepts gradually manifested, with one of them turning into a mighty torrent that instantly pierced through the divinity of time between the 14th god King of Darkness's brow under his summons. That was the law of time. The divine spark vibrated, and the aura of the 14th god King immediately increased exponentially. In an instant, he broke through the upper limit and entered another extremely terrifying realm. Rumble! Above the 9 heavens, rolling dark clouds gathered from all directions, covering the sky and the sun, and shrouding the space above the demonic realm. Within the clouds, countless deep blue lightning bolts shot down. In the depths of the dark clouds, countless lightning bolts formed a huge funnel, circling above the 14th god King's head. The 40 god kings standing above the demonic realm were below the lightning bolt. Countless lightning bolts fell on him, but they were all torn apart by him. That was the precursor to the appearance of the laws of balance. If the 14th god King could completely break through before the laws of balance appeared, and kill another supreme darkness from the same camp, he would be able to replace him and complete the balance. Above the void, just as the 14th god King of Darkness began to break through, the ocean of light, the ocean of darkness, and the 24 golden eyes seemed to open from the darkness, coldly looking at the 14th god King of Darkness who was breaking through in the space of the demon world. Intense murderous intent. The 24 gods of light and darkness undoubtedly did not wish for a new supreme ruler to appear, which would weaken their ruling power over the multiverse. However, when their gazes fell on the demonic realm of the 9 underworlds, and on the figure with an ordinary aura floating above the demonic realm, the intense murderous intent receded. Qin Feng sensed the 24 murderous gazes and smiled coldly. The 14th god King was about to trigger the second torrent of the law of slaughter, and was about to complete the breakthrough. Qin Feng beamed. At this moment, 3 enormous palms appeared above the void at the same time, and blasted toward Qin Feng. It was the Eternal Sovereigns, and they had joined forces against Qin Feng. Chapter 1752. A sneak attack? Qin Feng's expression remained unchanged. There was no trace of surprise on his face when the 3 Eternal Sovereigns joined forces. He seemed to have sensed it long ago, and rays of brilliance shot up into the sky from his body. Those were rays of pale golden brilliance. The moment they appeared, they turned into huge lotuses that blotted out the sky. The 3 giant palms blasted down, and countless lotuses collapsed and turned into fragments. In the blink of an eye, in the devastating storm, the lotuses bloomed as if they were rooted in the destruction. What a powerful defensive ability! 3 figures appeared one after another above the 9 underworld. Looking at this scene, they all frowned. The 3 of them could see that this was an extremely powerful divine technique evolved from the laws of heaven and earth. Its defense was unparalleled, and it seemed to have absorbed the mysteries of several laws of heaven and earth. Its defensive power was extremely outstanding. The 3 Eternal Sovereigns were right. It was a defensive divine technique that Qin Feng had developed by gathering the mysteries of the water curtain lotus flower from the laws of creation and the laws of heaven and earth that he had mastered. Its defensive power was very strong. Qin Feng looked at the three phantoms that fell from the void. At this time, the true bodies of the three eternal sovereigns who had joined forces to sneak attack were already in his sight. The void shook, and the endless planes and dimensions seemed to be faintly fluctuating under the true bodies of the three eternal sovereigns. They seemed to be above the multidimensional void. Among the three, the first was an eternal sovereign in silver armor. He was a powerhouse wrapped in silver armor, and no one could see his true appearance. He held a halberd in his hand, which seemed to be able to split the sky and the earth. The second was a Taoist. He wore a crown with 9 clouds on his head and a red robe with white cranes. The purple qi around him surged into the sky, and his immortal qi was upright. He was probably an immortal ancestral master born in a high-level world. The last one was surging with yellow earth qi, and a huge divine wheel above his head illuminated the multidimensional void. The place where he stood was separated by clear and turbid qi. Earth, water, wind, and fire surged. In the divine wheel behind his head, there were scenes of countless worlds floating and sinking. He should be the god of creation of a high-level world. The three of them all had the strength of an eternal sovereign. According to their strength, the most powerful were the god of creation and the Taoist. The god of creation had 6 manifestations behind his head, which was close to Qin Feng. The Taoist priest had almost condensed 6 images. Only the silver armor eternity was slightly weaker. It had 5 appearances that night. The three of them together had the qualifications to threaten Qin Feng. "Why are you three attacking me?" Qin Feng's expression was indifferent, but his hands had already appeared in front of his chest. A ball of light appeared between his palms. The Taoist among the three shook his head. "Fellow Taoist, your strength has already threatened the very foundation of our existence." Then, he looked at Qin Feng with a sincere expression. "Fellow Taoist, please give up on this deity. We can guarantee that we won't harm you." Qin Feng sneered. "Righteous and righteous. Isn't it because I was one step ahead of you guys and obtained the 14th Overlord of Darkness? That's why you guys are jealous. As the saying goes, if I can't have it, no one else can either. Isn't that what I mean? Don't waste your breath on him. No matter what happens today, even if we can't kill him, we have to beat him down." The god of creation looked even more impatient. He sneered and took the lead to step forward. At this moment, the Taoist priest and the silver armor eternity looked at each other and rushed over from the other 2 directions. They formed a tripartite formation and began to suppress Qin Feng together. As the three of them entangled Qin Feng, on the other side, the 2 godhoods between the eyebrows of the 14th Overlord of Darkness were already close to perfection. The first godhood of time had already been perfected. The other godhood of massacre was also rapidly approaching perfection. Once a perfect godhood was formed, he could directly ascend to the Supreme Overlord of Darkness. Seeing this situation, Qin Feng's expression changed. Once the 14th Supreme Overlord of Darkness completed his breakthrough, it wouldn't be long before the balanced law arrived. If the 14th Supreme Overlord of Darkness fell, he would lose everything. Bang! With a slight distraction, the god of creation smashed a golden walking stick on Qin Feng's body. Fortunately, a huge 24th grade gray lotus flew out from his body and blocked the attack. That was the lotus of creation. Even so, that heavy blow caused the lotus to tremble violently. Qin Feng's expression turned cold. Countless golden divine lights bloomed between his palms, and a huge axe appeared in his palm. This was a mystic technique that Qin Feng developed by combining the Tao techniques he heard from Taoist Hong Jun and the 7 laws of heaven and earth. Qin Feng called it the heaven-splitting mystic technique. In fact, it was a technique that could break through all techniques with one force. The huge golden axe slashed over, and the god of creation's expression changed drastically. Yellow light flashed around his body, and a yellow shield appeared. The vigorous aura within froze. That was also an extremely precious defensive treasure. The huge axe light slashed across, and under the god of creation's incredulous gaze, the huge yellow shield was split into two. The god of creation's body was split into countless pieces under the huge axe. One could vaguely see that the moment the god of creation's body collapsed, 6 huge laws of heaven and earth appeared. The axe light seemed to have cut through time and space, and one of the laws of heaven and earth suddenly collapsed thousands of miles away. The indestructible true spirit within was instantly annihilated in this terrifying fluctuation. That was the laws of heaven and earth. Boom! The yellow shield blocked for a moment, and after the laws of heaven and earth collapsed, the indestructible true spirit within the other 5 laws of heaven and earth instantly escaped into the depths of the laws of heaven and earth. The god of creation had escaped. Bang! A halberd and a long sword simultaneously slammed into Qin Feng's body. Qin Feng's body staggered as he was sent flying back dozens of feet. Crack! A soft sound was heard, and several fine cracks appeared in the center of the 24th grade lotus of creation revolving above Qin Feng's head. This natal spiritual treasure that had accompanied Qin Feng since before he attained the Tao had suffered almost irreparable damage. It seemed that in the next moment, the lotus would completely shatter with just one blow. Qin Feng used this lotus to exchange for the temporary elimination of the god of creation. Qin Feng's divine perception swept across the cracks on the lotus, and his expression was somewhat gloomy. This natal spiritual lotus, although its importance had decreased as his strength increased, had saved his life several times. On the opposite side, the Taoist and Silver Armor Eternity's expressions were somewhat ugly. Their combined attack had only caused Qin Feng to stagger. More than half of the attack had been absorbed by the lotus. On the other hand, they had lost their ally, the god of creation. Seeing Qin Feng holding the huge axe in his hand, the two of them looked at each other. Their expressions were calm, but they could see a trace of pity in each other's eyes. The 3 of them could not defeat Qin Feng, and they were not confident that they could defeat 2 people. This was impossible. 2 streams of light flashed, and almost one after the other, they retreated into the depths of the void behind them. Chapter 1753. Every additional rule of heaven and earth that one comprehended was not as simple as 1 + 1. This was especially so for an expert under a sage like Qin Feng. Even an eternal being who had comprehended the 7 appearances might not be his match. Being under a true sage was a huge golden signboard. Looking at the silver armor eternal being and the Taoist, Qin Feng wanted to eliminate them, but the 14th Dark Deity King had already completed his breakthrough from a deity king to a supreme. Qin Feng's eyes flickered for a moment, but he did not chase after him. Rumble! At this moment, thousands of light blue thunderbolts struck down from the void, and endless radiance filled the multiverse. Everyone could sense the birth of the 14th Dark Deity King. I am the Lord of Time, the Lord of Massacre. The 2 of us are one. In heaven and earth, the river of time flows forever. Massacre is indestructible. The Lord of Time and Massacre is eternal. The mighty voice filled the multiverse. Under the vast divine power, everyone was like Ant. He was like an ancient demon god, standing between heaven and earth. Above the 9 underworlds, Qin Feng looked at this scene and sneered. A beam of golden light shone down from the center of his palm, locking down the overgod of darkness in place. Beneath the faint golden light, the overgod of darkness' divine body began to crumble inch by inch. It was as if golden specks of light were breaking apart, disintegrating into fluorescent light. The power of creation rotated, and all the golden light condensed into 2 light golden perfect divine sparks, which fell into Qin Feng's palm. Above the multiverse, the 24 pairs of light golden eyes saw this scene, and their pupils shrank. The 14th dark deity who had just ascended was not any weaker than the 24 overgods of the light and dark camps because he had mastered 2 extremely powerful rules of heaven and earth. However, in front of Qin Feng, he was like an ant. His divine body shattered easily, and he returned to his original form. Such a move left the many champions and overgods of the multiverse in awe. Qin Feng looked at the 2 pure perfect divine sparks in his palm, and a smile appeared on his face. After looking around, Qin Feng disappeared from the space of the demonic realm in a flash. Nirvana Ocean. This was an extremely chaotic land of primordial chaos. Filled with primal chaos energy, Qin Feng exited the devil world and arrived at the depths of the Nirvana Ocean. This place was filled with danger. It was spacious and vast, and numerous chaotic vortexes filled the void. For Qin Feng, this was the best place for secluded cultivation. Qin Feng's figure entered a vortex, and a divine domain with an eternal aura emanated from him as he slowly descended. Countless tornadoes of chaotic energy formed by yellow sand could be seen spinning at high speed. However, with the support of the deity domain, these chaotic energies were unable to affect Qin Feng. Qin Feng took a look at his surroundings. Above his head, the 24-rank lotus of fate flew out. The lotus took root in the chaos above his head. Faintly, several cracks appeared on the lotus. It was like a living creature. Its lotus leaves gently unfurled and absorbed chaotic energy. It began to repair the lotus of good fortune's source. At the same time, it exuded a different kind of majesty that froze the chaotic vortex around it. This was double insurance. Seeing this, Qin Feng began to look at the perfect divine spark in the lotus. Qin Feng's gaze first landed on the massacre divine spark. At this moment, he was still holding onto the overgod of darkness, the lord of destruction. Qin Feng's gaze flickered. Massacre and destruction. Both of them were top-notch natural laws. Actually, in his heart, Qin Feng hoped to obtain the natural law of destruction more. The natural law of destruction was closer to the source. In essence, it was superior to the massacre divine spark. However, the natural law of creation and the natural law of destruction were somewhat repetitive. However, Qin Feng did not intend to give up on the natural law of destruction. He would first absorb the massacre divine spark. As for the time divine spark, he would wait until he had condensed the eternal sacred body before absorbing the natural law of destruction. Qin Feng temporarily sealed the time divine spark and kept it in his sleeve. The massacre divine spark floated above. It gradually appeared between his eyebrows. Qin Feng immediately felt a massive amount of massacre divine spark entering his eternal sacred body through his forehead. At the same time, he released the life connection into the multiverse, countless planes, and dimensions to capture and comprehend the traces of the massacre divine spark. In countless planes and dimensions, countless massacres were happening all the time. Endless information about the massacre divine spark was being absorbed by his consciousness. Gradually, a blood-red divine wheel appeared behind Qin Feng. As soon as the blood-red divine wheel appeared, endless killing intent condensed in the Nirvana Ocean. The primal chaos chi turned into a blood-red liquid. The eternal sovereigns had guessed correctly. A portion of the overgods of the multiverse were born according to the natural law of heaven and earth. They did not have a personality and were essentially no different from Eternal Phase. The only difference was that Eternal Phase could only passively use their own power. On the other hand, the overgods of the multiverse that were born according to the natural law of heaven and earth could actively use their own supreme power. However, there was no difference between the two in essence. Both could be refined by the eternal sovereigns and turned into their own. Half a month later, Qin Feng's aura suddenly skyrocketed. Violent energy gushed out and shook the entire Nirvana Ocean. Majestic massacre divine spark flowed through his glabella. In the multiverse, countless massacre anomalies appeared all over the Nirvana Ocean. However, the anomalies disappeared in the blink of an eye. Qin Feng opened his eyes. The blood-red massacre divine spark in the depths of his glabella had completely disappeared. His pale golden eyes were incomparably sharp. That terrifying gaze was enough to easily shatter a peak god king's body. The 8th manifestation is complete. Just a little bit more. Qin Feng's eyes were filled with excitement. The grand mist holy power in his body circulated and pale golden eternal radiance flowed. Just a little bit more. He felt that he was just a little bit away from completely transforming his grand mist holy power into eternal holy power. What a powerful feeling! Qin Feng's pale golden eyes flickered. At this moment, he felt that his power was several times stronger than before. If he were to encounter those eternal sovereigns who were trying to take advantage of the situation, he could easily tear their bodies apart and shatter the heaven and earth laws that they controlled. Qin Feng waved his sleeves. The time divine spark floated out from his sleeves and appeared in front of his chest. Qin Feng closed his eyes. The time divine spark floated up and entered his glabella. His consciousness spread out into the multiverse as he began to comprehend the new time law. The time law was extremely powerful. It touched upon the origin of the multiverse and was much stronger than the ordinary heaven and earth laws. When Qin Feng comprehended a part of the time law, Qin Feng's consciousness sensed the river of time that permeated the multiverse. The enormous river of time seemed to be summoned and poured down from the heavens into his breakthrough. If an ordinary utmost being were to encounter such an impact, their flesh and blood would probably rot and fester. However, the eternal qi in Qin Feng's body had already appeared. There was an immortal and indestructible aura that resisted the impact. Not long after, the time law was summoned. Chapter 1754. Another incomparably huge divine wheel appeared behind Qin Feng's head, as if it had penetrated the multiverse, countless planes, and countless dimensions. The time law had reached perfection. The moment the 9th manifestation, the appearance of time, reached perfection, Qin Feng felt that the appearance of time had integrated into his body. The grand mist holy power had completely transformed into pale golden eternal holy power. It was a change from the inside to the outside. Every inch of his internal organs, bones, flesh, meridians, acupoints, and skin had been tempered by the eternal power. Standing in the chaos qi, Qin Feng did not know how long had passed until his flesh and blood emitted eternal radiance. Just by relying on his flesh and blood, he could feel the heaven and earth law of the multiverse. Buzz. He finally awoke from that mysterious and profound state. When he opened his eyes, there seemed to be a golden light in his eyes that shook the multiverse, causing the heaven and earth law of the multiverse to tremble. Powerful, unparalleled power. At this time, Qin Feng felt that just by relying on his fist, he could easily shatter the heaven and earth law of the multiverse. At this moment, he had a feeling that if he was besieged again, even if there were 10 or 20 eternal soul experts besieging him, he could easily slaughter them and blast them into pieces. And the divine Tao law created by himself had reached a certain level of strength. If the previous divine Tao law could only be regarded as a relatively large tributary, it had now reached a new level. Now, it had fused with the 9 tributaries and begun to approach the fountainhead at the depths of the profound multiverse. Yes, it was only close to the source. Qin Feng had a feeling that if the divine Tao law he created was recognized by the source, it would be possible to break through to the eternal true saint realm. At this time, some information appeared in Qin Feng's mind. This information was left behind by Hong Jun ancestor. He would only discover the existence of this information when he reached a certain realm. According to this information, Qin Feng should now be in the second realm of the eternal sage-to-be. There was a third realm, the eternal fate. The first realm above the supreme was condensing the eternal soul. The second realm was to comprehend the 9 appearances and strengthen the life law of the heaven and earth that one occupied, or the heaven and earth law that one created, to a certain extent. This realm could be called the eternal river. The laws of heaven and earth created by him were like a great river, enough to envelop one or several high-level great worlds. As for the other powerful beings, they could entrust their souls onto the laws of the heaven and earth, and give birth to an utmost being. As long as the powerful beings of the eternal river realm did not fall, those utmost beings would be able to remain undying and indestructible along with them. After cultivating the second realm, the eternal river, the laws were like a river, and it would also give birth to an elementary eternal sacred body. The third eternal life providence had to be born with a life providence that matched the eternal true sage. Qin Feng did not understand much about the profundity of an eternal life providence. However, Qin Feng had roamed the heavens and experienced countless worlds. It was not impossible for him to understand the secrets of birth charts. In the world, there were many unique life providences, such as the crepe myrtle life providence, ravenous wolf life providence, army destroyer life providence, 7 kills life providence, literati star life providence, martial star life providence, hidden dragon life providence, riches life providence, and so on. Among them, those who had the crepe myrtle life providence were almost destined to be monarchs. Many monarchs had the crepe myrtle life providence. As for the army destroyer life providence, the covetous wolf life providence, and the 7 kills life providence, they were born ferocious and had a general life providence. The literati star life providence was also known as the top scholar life providence. However, the life providence was not constant. According to what Qin Feng knew, many monarchs only had the life providence of a koi fish before they became monarchs. Those who were slightly better had the life providence of a flood dragon. The general star life providence of the greedy wolf, army destroyer, 7 kills, and many others were not born with the life providence of an ominous star. Many of them were scattered stars. They would devour each other and evolve over and over again. From a scattered star to a superstar, then to a secondary star, and finally to a primary star. Moreover, the life providence was unpredictable. Even those who had a top life providence could be taken away and beaten down. In fact, according to Qin Feng's own opinion, the life providence was equivalent to the heaven and earth karmic rank. It was closely related to luck. It required specific conditions to be able to complete the plan. The eternal life providence was an extremely high-level heaven and earth karmic rank. It was a heaven and earth karmic rank that surpassed the monarch realm and was in the Tao realm. The pinnacle of the monarch realm was the heavenly emperor karmic rank. The Tao realm karmic rank was far above the heavenly emperor karmic rank. Qin Feng's gaze fell on the multidimensional void. The strength of the heaven and earth karmic rank was related to the luck and territory one controlled. Should he try to take the multidimensional void under his command and cast a heaven and earth karmic rank? Qin Feng looked pensive. He used his divine thoughts to begin to deduce, but the results of hundreds of deductions disappointed him. First of all, the luck of the multidimensional void might not be enough to cast a Tao realm karmic rank. Secondly, this plan should not be feasible. Otherwise, the other experts of the Eternal River would have taken action long ago. There would be movements in the vast and boundless void. Obviously, this plan was very likely not feasible. However, I have to give it a try no matter what, he murmured. Qin Feng was not willing to give up. In this world, there were many experts who pursued supreme authority. Some sought the excitement of exploring new things while adventuring. Some sought to live as long as the heavens and the earth, as long as all living things were in the same spring. However, Qin Feng's goal had always been eternity. Only by becoming an eternal true saint would he be qualified to be called an expert in this boundless heaven and earth. especially after witnessing the situation of the supreme gods of the multidimensional void. For the people around him, for himself, and for the changes of the Chaos era. Qin Feng's figure flashed and he walked out of the Nirvana ocean. In the supreme ancient immortal realms, a figure appeared in the air, floating in the sky. I didn't expect that the most crucial transformation, the eternal sacred body, would take as long as 3,000 years. Above the void, Qin Feng looked at the horizon of the firmament. There was a monstrous demonic aura and supreme experts. On the other side, many experts of the human race rose into the sky and were engaged in a fierce battle with the countless experts of the domain of demons. The primordial continent had changed greatly after Qin Feng had not appeared for more than 3,000 years. After Qin Feng defeated them, several eternal soul powerhouses had already left the void with their tails between their legs. These eternal soul experts knew that it was impossible for them to be Qin Feng's opponent after his breakthrough. They ran far away, fearing that he would take revenge. However, before these experts left, they left behind many problems. These experts had revived many experts, such as Qiyu, in order to set up a trap to test the waters. This was not the most significant change. Some of the supreme gods of the multidimensional void had finally given birth to complete personalities in the following few hundred years. With personalities, the conflict of interests became quite serious. As Qin Feng went into seclusion and there was no mountain to suppress him, these conflicts became more and more acute. Small-scale battles were unavoidable. Most importantly, some experts born in the Chaos era had begun to break through to the Supreme or the Supreme God realm. This added fuel to the fire in the multidimensional void's chaos. In order for a new expert to advance further, they needed more territory and more luck. As for the old experts, they needed to protect the cake in their hand. War finally broke out. Chapter 1755. Heaven space and demon space originally had an absolute advantage in this aspect. The 22 Supremes of the Light and Dark camp were superior, and their numbers were far greater than any of the ancient races. However, because of fear of the Eternal Ones hiding in the dark, the remaining 22 Supremes of the Light and Dark camp did not dare to walk out of the ocean of light and the ocean of darkness. Heaven space and demon space were at a disadvantage. Heaven space was still fine, but demon space was almost wiped out by Qiyu alone, and the light of the entire demon space was obtained by Qiyu. Demon flames filled the sky, and the scene before the first great divine demon war was repeated. The 13 Dark Lords were no match for Qiyu at all. They either died or surrendered. With the support of the entire demon space, Qiyu broke through the limit of the Supremes and advanced to the Supremes. At the same time, after being resurrected by Qin Feng, Supremacy Xianyuan of the human race was pressured by his old rival, Qiyu. He took a risk and broke through to the Supreme God realm in a short period of time. When Qiyu was devouring the demon space, Emperor Huang Xianyuan also had to prepare for the upcoming war. With a portion of the resurrected human experts, the human race began to sweep in all directions. They swept across the immemorial world. Just as Emperor Huang Xianyuan and the other upper echelons of the human race expected, after Qiyu unified the demon space, the first thing he thought of was his old rival, Emperor Huang Xianyuan, and brazenly launched a war against the immemorial world. At this time, the immemorial world had already lost the 4 guardian beasts. Before the eternal sovereigns left, the 4 guardian beasts had already been killed. Rumble! Above the sky, Qin Feng saw 2 powerful wills traversing the multiverse from afar. The mighty aura impact caused the surroundings to shake. Among the 2 auras, one was filled with demon flames that devoured the world. The other's Tao was boundless, and his majesty was as deep as the abyss. Above the sea of clouds, a domineering demonic figure stood between heaven and earth, holding the tiger soul saber. Behind him, countless demon experts stood like a forest. demon flames filled half of the world. On the other side, Emperor Huang Xianyuan held the Emperor Dao weapon, Xianyuan sword, and Sword Qi sword into the sky. Behind Emperor Huang Xianyuan, a group of human experts stood. Countless god-level experts of the human race flickered with boundless divine light and occupied half of the world. Below their feet, countless experts of both sides were fighting, and the war was about to enter a white-hot stage. Qin Feng glanced at it. His figure transformed into a formless beam of light and instantly appeared in the air above the battlefield. Who is it? Many experts instantly looked above the void. With just a glance, the expressions of countless godly experts, including Emperor Huang Xianyuan and Qi Yu, changed. They recognized Emperor Huang Xianyuan's sword. Senior. After Emperor Huang Xianyuan, Emperor Xuanyuan's Emperor Xianyuan. At this time, there was a very strong Emperor Qi on his body. Clearly, he had successfully laid down the 9 immemorial cauldrons and achieved the immemorial celestial emperor body. Xianyuan 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 Xianyuan. Zuan Xianyuan Emperor Xianyuan 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 Xuanyuan. At this moment, Qin Feng didn't hide his appearance. Xianyuan Wuji, Xianyuan Hen, Jade Emperor, and the others had already recognized Ice Ancestor. Qin Feng even saw his nominal maid, Nu Ba, among the supremes of the human race. It's him. At this time, Demon Ancestor Qi Yu also recognized Qin Feng's identity. His eyes flashed with a trace of light, and his ruthless and overbearing gaze fell on Qin Feng. He was somewhat eager to have a go. After becoming a supreme god through the demonic realm space, Demon Ancestor Qi Yu's power had swelled, and so had his mentality. Feeling the surging battle intent and killing intent behind him, Qin Feng turned around and looked at Qi Yu. Looking over, Qi Yu's expression changed. He felt that the surrounding space had become extremely viscous, and he couldn't move at all. An extremely terrifying chill enveloped his undying demon soul, and the law of heaven and earth that his undying true spirit was entrusted with seemed like it would collapse at any moment. Qi Yu's words were stuck in his throat as his fierce and domineering face turned extremely pale. What a terrifying power! No wonder those supreme gods in heaven and the demonic realm hid themselves so tightly. On the side, Emperor Huang Xianyuan, as a supreme god, also felt an invisible and terrifying pressure. He felt that a supreme god like him was as fragile as a piece of tofu under this pressure. Qin Feng cast a glance at Sovereign Xianyuan, who was at the side. He saw Sovereign Xuanyuan's small action. However, Qin Feng smiled and did not bother about it. Qin Feng smiled at the two. I need to unify the multiverse void, achieve the great cause of Tao Ancestor, and preach to all living beings. I wonder if the two of you are willing to lend me a hand? Preach to all living beings? An expert who had surpassed the supreme god level was preaching. Many god-level experts, whether they were from the human race, the demon race, or some experts who were watching the battle in the dark, were slightly stirred. They looked at Qin Feng with a burning gaze. This was really a gift from the heavens. Although there was a rather complete system of experts in the multiverse void, it wasn't particularly specific, especially the method of breaking through above the supreme level. It was still in the ignorant stage of exploration. We are willing to listen to seniors' teachings. Emperor Huang Xianyuan glanced at the many experts of the human race. His expression changed, and he took a step back to express his attitude. Seeing this, Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a smile. After a while, he immediately looked at Qi Yu. Seeing his gaze, Qi Yu's expression changed slightly, and he immediately expressed his stance. The demon race is also willing to listen to Tao Ancestor's teachings. As Qi Yu expressed his stance, the great battle between the human race and the demon race that had been prepared for hundreds of years came to an end because of Qin Feng's sudden appearance. The later generations called this matter Tao Ancestor stopped the war. It was recorded in the ancient books and became a controversial myth. According to the historical records, Tao ancestor ruled the world. After 49 years, he built the heavenly Tao palace on Mount Tai of the primordial world and preached the Tao. At the right time, thousands of gods descended to listen to the Tao. The leaders were Emperor Huang Xianyuan, demon ancestor Qiyu, Count of Wind and Lord of Rain, Qi Songzi, zombie ancestor Nuba, and countless other primordial experts who later became famous in the multiverse void. The later generations believed that the Tao ancestors preaching this time had completely opened the door of cultivation for the multiverse void, allowing countless cultivators to fully understand the true essence of cultivation and the specific cultivation methods of each realm. It had truly opened the era of blooming flowers and laid an incomparably solid foundation for the prosperity of the multiverse void. Many famous sects in the later generations started from this. The title of Tao Ancestor was well-deserved. After 800 years of preaching, the heavenly Tao palace disappeared between heaven and earth, and the gods retreated. In the quaint palace, Qin Feng's aura was steaming around him. Countless rays of light shrouded him, making him appear boundless and sacred. Endless visions of heaven and earth appeared behind his head. The aura around him slowly rose. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.